Welcome in, everyone, to Football Friday, presented by Football Addicts Anonymous. Switching out Chris for Mark today.
I guess that's okay. Thanks for having me. I might not be as knowledgeable, but hey.
Well, we'll definitely be able to use your knowledge on the first couple things here. But before we get into NCAA news, we have just overview of the show today. So we're going to have our fantasy tight end rankings, our top 15, just like we did last year. Not Mark's list, but he can talk about Chris's list. And got a bunch of stuff going on. It's that time of year. We have football is officially back. We had a preseason game.
Yes, we did.
So let's get into that. I forgot to put that on the script, actually. And I put a lot of stats because I just couldn't leave anyone off. There's so many people playing preseason. But anyways, the Hall of Fame game went down last night. Steelers got the dub 16-3. Leading passer in the game, Garrett Gilbert for the Cowboys, 9-13, 104. The two touchdowns in the game came Josh Dobbs to Tyler Simmons, and Kalen Ballage ran one in as well.
Well, what do you being a Steelers fan, did you enjoy watching Rudolph or Haskins? Were they about the same? Did you like one performance over the other? Because I could sit here and rave about, I really thought Najee Harris looked really good. I thought Joe Buck hit it a couple times. He gets lashing for his commentating, but, he talked about, he only had one reception for 3 yards, but I still thought he looked good coming out of the backfield as a receiver. And they both spoke about that on the commentary last night, how he can run and catch. And they almost compared him to a Le'Veon Bell. That's a high remark before you get into a regular season game. But I'm more interested, from your point of view, the quarterback play for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I thought Mason Rudolph looked very good. Did have the one missed exchange on the jet sweep with Chase Claypool. Not really sure if that was supposed to be a fake or a handoff. Obviously, Micah Parsons came up with his first big rookie moment, recovering that fumble for the Cowboys. But I was disappointed that Josh Dobbs only got in with 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, because I was playing some daily fantasy on DraftKings and FanDuel, and I had about the same lineups in each. FanDuel only lets you do 5 players on the captain showdown lineups. DraftKings, you can do 6 players. So Trey Edmonds was the other guy that I had in my DraftKings lineup that I didn't have in FanDuel, but it worked out. It was I put 10 cents in on, I think, FanDuel, and I put 25 cents in on DraftKings, and I won both. I won 50 cents on DraftKings, 60 cents on FanDuel. So my lineups were Kalen Ballage was my captain, and he scored, so I was happy about that. Josh Dobbs threw a touchdown. Unfortunately, it wasn't to the receiver that I had, which was Rico Bussey, undrafted out of Hawaii. I also had Jaquan Hardy, running back for the Cowboys. And who else did I have? Oh, I had the Steelers defense on DraftKings. FanDuel doesn't allow defenses. So I think the other guy on FanDuel that I had was, I can't remember. But anyways, yeah, I thought quarterback play looked good. Dwayne Haskins did look miles better than what he looked like with the Washington football team. I also thought for the Cowboys wise, Garrett Gilbert looked great.
He looked very comfortable in the pocket, in my opinion.
he definitely is the far and wide leader, I believe, for that backup job. And I knew Garrett Gilbert was going to be good. I mean, we saw him with the Orlando Apollos 2 years ago in the AAF with the head ball coach himself, Steve Spurrier, leading the way. And we saw him in that offense. I think it's a good offense for him as well, the Mike McCarthy offense. So
Now, it's preseason, we're playing different guys. There's a lot of talk about the best thing that Dallas did this offseason was went and got Dan Quinn. They didn't win the game, but did you like what you saw from their defense?
yeah, they definitely looked good. I wasn't keying in too much on the Dallas defense. The Pittsburgh defense I knew was going to be good, and it showed.
Oh,
That even with the losses that they had this offseason, Steven Nelson, Lawrence Timmons retiring, or not Lawrence Timmons. I don't remember. One linebacker. I can't. But anyways,
and I think an interesting thing about the game is the Steelers win 16-3, and I'm pretty sure that they still lost. I think Dallas recorded 347 yards to their 250, or 353 to 250, but they won the turnover game.
yeah, 347 to 250. Yeah, and the first downs were pretty equal. You're right. I mean, it was 3-1, 2 fumbles and a pick for the Steelers defense. And what I got
missed 2 field goals by Dallas as well.
Yeah, what I got mad at on FanDuel, or not FanDuel, DraftKings, was that I had the Steelers defense, right? Which includes special teams. And that second kick was blocked, which should have recorded 2 more points, but they didn't give it to me. No, but for the Steelers, the rest of the offense, like you said, Najee Harris looked good, only 3.1 per off 7 carries. That's because he wasn't playing with the starting O-line. The only starter that played on the offensive line was Kendrick Green, just because he's a rookie and they need him to get reps. Projected as the starting center, possibly. I mean, he's fighting with a couple other guys, but Chase Claypool I thought looked good. Had that one long gain, about 30-something yards from Mason Rudolph. So, and Alex Highsmith. Man, Alex Highsmith had himself a game. It's against the backup offensive line, I understand, but he showed that he's not going to just let Melvin Ingram come in and take his spot opposite of TJ Watt. So
I like it. And if you didn't have a chance to watch this, one thing that my wife took away was, wow, that stadium looks awesome. And I mean, it has since Tom Benson put money into it, but I think not having this game, an exhibition game in the last few years, I even forgot how nice of a stadium this really is.
Yeah. One last thing. Presley Harvin, as Rich Eisen would say, punters are people too. Presley Harvin had a freaking game, man.
He did.
4 punts, 45.8 average, 3 out of his 4 inside the 20, and a dime dropped on the 1-inch line.
I was impressed by that.
And I told people, man, when we had the AFC North draft recap, I was like, dude, Presley Harvin out of Georgia Tech is going to be fantastic for the Steelers. A great 7th round selection by Kevin Colbert and the Pittsburgh front office. So Hunter Nice-Wonder, on the other hand, like you alluded to earlier, not as good of a night, having kicking and punting duties. Sam Sloman for the Steelers as well. Their kicker, even though he's not going to be the kicker, obviously Chris Boswell still the starter in Pittsburgh, but Sloman getting the kicking reps, didn't have the greatest night either. Missed a field goal, missed the extra point. So yeah, that was the game. There's a lot of other stats, guys, we didn't talk about.
Ball is back though.
Really, the only guys we didn't talk about really were guys that I put on here. Ben DiNucci, I put on because he threw an interception. That's the only reason I put him on there. Rico Dowdle was the leading rusher in the game, 43 yards. Balaj, like I said, scored that touchdown. Killebrew, leading tackler for the Steelers, or for the entire game, 6 total tackles. Micah Parsons, I mean, we didn't talk about him really. I said about he had that fumble recovery. People were raving about Micah Parsons. I was like, he didn't play that much for one, so we didn't really see too much of him. He only had 3 tackles, so I don't think it was a
Rookie
spectacular game.
Year, though, right?
Huh?
Rookie defense of the year, right?
Yeah, I mean, I already told you the 2 defensive rookie of the year bets I have in, and I would rather have Odafe Owe win it, considering that's larger odds. I got Micah Parsons at plus 350, Odafe Owe at plus 1750 with the Ravens. So, Kyron Brown, good for him to get on here with 2 tackles for loss. We talked about him signing with the Cowboys. Intriguing signing, getting a 2-year deal as a street free agent. Not usually something that happens.
No.
Jameer Jones had a good night. 3 quarterback hits there. Donovan Steiner had the 1 interception of the game off of Ben DiNucci. Mark Gilbert was sticky in coverage all night. I saw a lot of 17 covering receivers out there, 2 pass selections. And then Azor Kamara there as well had 2 tackles for loss. I believe that's not pass deflections. I think I put that in wrong. No, 2 QB hits for Azor Kamara. Don't ask me if he's related to Alvin, because I don't know.
That, but I just left it alone.
I know Chris would have asked it, so
I figured it would have been pretty in the news, Twitter sphere,
Yeah. All right. So that is the game. We'll have a full slate of preseason action coming up starting next Thursday.
Yeah. Football is back. That's the first thing I texted you yesterday. Football is back.
For that game, betting wise, the Steelers covered minus 2.5, under 32, easy money. Cash it. NCAA news, 2 things. Big 12 back in the news again. This time with a partner potentially.
You better link up if you want to survive. You better link up.
Yeah, the Big 12 and Pac-12 commissioners, they met to discuss a potential strategic partnership. I don't even know what that means. I just thought when I saw the headline, it was going to be like, all right, Big 12, Pac-12, they're going to merge.
Yeah, right.
And create their own conference. So
I think it's some of a strategic partnership. Yeah, let's call them the Big Pack. We're about to put on the Big Pack. No, I think it's trying to get into primetime slots. If you can combine them a little bit or play each other a lot, I think this is just another step. I mean, no offense to anybody, but what did I say about what was going to happen with Texas and OU? Everything hit the wickets, right? I told you the year that they were going to join, and the Big 12 was the next step was reaching out to this and this, and so I think you're going to have the first, buddies come together, and maybe you're cutting out those to get into the playoff picture. You're cutting out those games where you're paying schools. I think you see less of Missouri versus Liberty, right, where you have to pay Liberty some money to come play you, and it's going to be, well, we're going to play the Pac-12, and maybe the champion of on the Big 12 side and Pac-12 plays each other, and for better seeding. I think the Big Ten, ACC, and SEC are still in good hands, but I would see those three conferences maybe even forming some type of partnership, if not, and I definitely see the ACC and SEC because there's so many in-state rivalries, right? Like, let's have a strategic partnership where, Clemson and South Carolina all already play, right? But, does Florida State in Florida, so there's a partnership there. Georgia Tech, Georgia already play, so let's maybe have what we call, instead of combining the conferences, we'll call it a fancy word, strategic partnership.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the Big Ten eventually
has to pick.
Will do what the SEC is doing now.
Yeah,
they'll upgrade and they'll add Cincinnati for one, because that makes sense. Cincinnati can play Ohio State every single year. They're right there. The other one that they would add, I'm not so sure, but they already have 14. So
I still firmly believe that I don't know if it'll be the year that Texas and Oklahoma come. I don't know if it's a little bit after that. Football is going to be its own entity, if that makes sense. It's going to be like the College Football Commission or college football, whatever name you want to call it, college football conferences, Power Five, like basketball, women's basketball, men's basketball, all that will stay under the umbrella of the NCAA, but the Power Five football group is going to have its own, like college football league, CFL, or, something with CFP, and we're just going to do our own thing. And then the NCAA will maybe vote on a commissioner and boom, because NCAA makes zero money off of it. You know what I mean? The leagues make money off of their TV contracts, and then the bowl games are Tostito, Verizon, Chick-fil-A, Peach Bowl, things like that. And so down the road, it's going to just be offset. And maybe that's like schools like Coastal Carolina, right? East Carolina, Liberty. You have to say, can we keep up in this, or are we going to kind of just have our NCAA type platform, if that makes sense?
Yeah. And I just thought about Big Ten, other school you can add, maybe go after Syracuse. Bring Syracuse over from the ACC.
Schools like Houston and Memphis, are they going to go with the Big 12 to that partnership, or does the Big Ten sweep in and try to do it? Do you try to steal West Virginia in the Big Ten? It's already over there. West Virginia doesn't want to go all the way out to Washington and play. I wouldn't think they would want to. Where does Boise State land? They definitely now need, in my opinion, should be attached to the Pac-12. UNLV, like there's some bigs. They might not be big time in like national powerhouses in football, but they're institutions that are recognizable, have respectable, they can field a respectable team, right? Like UCF, someone's got to pick up UCF, even if it's the ACC, or the Big Ten. It's not like they're sitting right there, the Big East, somebody.
All right, the other NCAA news, just a little short thing here. The SEC, they signed Commissioner Greg Sankey to a new contract extension. He is now signed through 2026, which is a key point. 2025 is the expected year of Oklahoma and Texas to jump over. Whether that comes earlier or not, obviously Chris and I talked about it before.
Very well.
$75 to $80 million payout for Oklahoma and Texas each right now to get out of their contracts, media rights contracts with the Big 12. But what they're hoping for is the Big 12 to dissolve. So then therefore the media rights go away and they can just hop over to the SEC without having to pay a dime.
It's projected $1 billion profit when they jump. Like, you might want to pay that earlier. You might, maybe not this year, but maybe coming out of the pandemic, but maybe in 23. And I think this is a no-brainer. the SEC has, I mean, everything has to do with the SEC network, right? But he was at the forefront of envisioning this and working with ESPN to make this, and so he's earned an extension. He has brought this conference money. It is ridiculous. All I have to say.
All right, going into NFL news here. So we will have the Centennial Class 2020 Hall of Fame class enshrined tonight. All 20, I believe it is, enshrinees. I'm not sure if it's 2020 class or if it's 20 enshrinees. I don't remember. But the 2020 Hall of Fame class will be enshrined tonight. 2021 Hall of Fame class enshrined tomorrow night, which is the night I'm really interested in watching. Sorry, 2020 class. I know you had guys like Bill Cowher in there who I would love to watch, but probably might not watch that tonight. But 2021, you know, we got Peyton, we got Megatron, Charles Woodson. Those are the guys I grew up watching. And I'm excited to watch them give their speeches.
Charles Woodson almost made me a full-fledged Michigan fan. I started watching him, won a Heisman as a cornerback. That's what I played. Absolutely love him. And I think the best speech is going to be between him and Peyton Manning, because we know how funny Peyton Manning is. If you didn't watch any of the Hall of Fame game, I can't wait for him and his brother. He explained that they're pretty much going to be on their couch. They're not going to be in the studio all the time and just watching football and talking. And just the fact that he made fun of himself, like, the reason I'm doing that is my forehead and neck is way too big to be in a booth. I can barely fit in here with you guys. And I'm like, I can't wait to hear his Hall of Fame speech. And I think it's the same with Woodson, because he's got a sense of humor, but he's also got that what's a good word, that golly side where it took a lot of hard work to get to where he was at, and I'm curious to see how he combines that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I haven't watched the speeches in a couple years now. Obviously, we didn't have them last year. The last ones that I remember watching are two of the most memorable ones that actually Ray Lewis made me tear up a little. I'm tearing up a little bit just thinking about Ray Lewis's speech. Ray Lewis was by far the best speech that I've ever witnessed. Him and Brian Dawkins, those are the two that really hit home for me. So
I enjoy this. I enjoy these speeches.
Well, one guy that is also going in this weekend, former Cowboys head coach, two-time Super Bowl champ, Jimmy Johnson. He on the pregame show for Fox last night, they had a bunch of Cowboys on there. They had Jerry Jones, Jimmy Johnson, Michael Irvin. I don't think Troy was there. I think he was up in the booth. But yeah, they had those guys there on the set, and Jerry Jones announced right there that Jimmy Johnson this season will be inducted into the Cowboys Ring of Honor as well. So he gets two inductions this year.
I couldn't be more happy about this. So you have to remember, I grew up in Missouri, right? And Cardinals fan, like a St. Louis just fanatic, Blues. And we didn't always have the Rams. And everybody around me was the Chiefs. And so when the Rams came to town, we jumped and I got a lot of my love and affinity for sports teams and sports from my grandma. And so she watched the Cowboys. And she was like, you need to watch how Jimmy Johnson handles these three just future Hall of Famers. And she was by nature, she was a physical education teacher, and my grandpa served in World War II. And so she played softball. She was just a good athlete. So we cheered for the Cowboys before the Rams came to town, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so this is one of these things where I'm a semi-Cowboys fan, but not after all the ordeal and the rift between these two, because Jimmy Johnson put them on, they had to draft good and he had to find a coach, but it was Jimmy Johnson that was really the architecture of what became the Cowboys in the 90s. And they've had this rift, right? And to me, this is kind of chopping it and welcoming him back to the family. So I love this. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, sticking with coaching here, the Bucks, they signed defensive coordinator Todd Bowles to a new 3-year deal. He had 1 year left on his contract. This 3-year deal replaces it. He is still the highest paid defensive coordinator. And he can still go get a head coaching job if one comes up next season or whenever.
I think Byron Leftwich, if he stays there, can take over after Arians. But if he decides to go somewhere before that happens, I think Todd Bowles is now in position to maybe even be a replacement as well.
Yeah, and you usually see that a second head coaching opportunity usually works out a heck of a lot better than the first one. Todd Bowles, obviously, with the New York Jets, did not work out too.
Right organization, right? Like I would argue that there's probably a lot of coaches, and they wanted to be a head coach so bad that they didn't look at, okay, I'm not stepping into the right management, the right fit, how I want to do things, how I want to implement my system, and that's the key.
Yeah.
Became a head coach, or my son's ever became a head coach of any sport, like look at the administration.
Yeah, I mean, I have heard sometimes when it's your first shot, you just have to take a spot,
right,
just to get that experience, because that's the exact thing that happened with Josh McDaniels as well. That's why he's been getting head coaching interviews the last couple of seasons, because he's been there, even though it didn't work out with the Broncos. He's gone back to his roots with the Patriots.
He did take him to a playoff. I do try to remind people that.
Yeah. So that's the same thing with GMs. Obviously, that's my intended career path. So it's.
But you always get
heard that.
Shot. Once you can put that title on there, you usually get another shot.
Yeah. Philip Rivers. Back in the news.
Yeah, so, baby. I like it.
Obviously retired this off season, but he said he hasn't ruled out playing again. But only for a contender, probably. If we have a quarterback injury late in the season, he's ready to go.
Hear me out on this. I think it's going to happen. The guy isn't going to – I don't foresee Philip Rivers going tomorrow, okay, I'm coming to training camp. I promise you that he coaches the entire football season. And that can – some states, the championships right after Thanksgiving. I know here in Georgia, it went to like December 15th last year. I could see him coaching an entire year, and whether he stays in shape or not, throws down the headphones and goes – all right, I'm coming to help this team out, or I'm available if you need help. And how cool would that be? Like you get to coach a whole season, and then I'm just going to go put the pads on again in the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's tough. Like I said, it would really only be an option if a quarterback went down on a contender. His former team now has an opening, possibly. We don't know when Carson's coming back. And I know that had been floated. If Carson was expected to miss significant time, that Philip Rivers could possibly be an option to come back. They already signed Brett Hundley.
What if they stay afloat? He knows the playbook and he just comes.
I think if they're in the playoff picture and Carson goes down again in the second half of the season,
I could see that.
Then it becomes an option again.
Hey,
but I also think about the Broncos. Okay. I know I projected them to finish 4th in the division, but I know everyone's been saying they have a championship roster. They're a quarterback away. They never got their quarterback this offseason that everyone was thinking about. Some guy named Aaron Rodgers. Deshaun Watson is apparently still available for trade, but that hasn't happened yet. So it's Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater.
What? Let's stay in the division, and this would be the wildest scenario. And I'm not taking any. This would be an injury because the kid is so good. But let's say that he cracks a rib or he's sacked and something happens to his clavicle. Would it not be the craziest thing that the Chargers now have an opening? And they're second in the division. They're right there. They're in the playoffs. Come back.
Well, Chris and I both had them finishing second in the division at the.
Things
13-4.
Things have been wilder. And can you imagine? Like, let's say he takes them to the promised land, or he wins one playoff game like that. That for him is you got to write that, and now I'm done. I'm officially done.
Yeah. I'm not so sure though that he can still play.
I don't want
the playoff game against Buffalo did not look
good, buddy. I exactly in the back of my mind, and I know that his dad, was a coach growing up, I believe, and he's excited to be a coach, and I think he might fall in love with it and go, no. Or maybe if they don't have a good high school season, he's like, okay, I got to go play one more time before I really just go all in coaching or something.
Well, Philip Rivers can be I don't even know how many coaches they've had in their franchise history, but whatever coach, if Brandon Staley doesn't work out for the Chargers. All right. Another free agent quarterback made the news this week as well. RG3, he will be joining ESPN in a broadcasting role. He will be an analyst for college football and NFL games this year on a multi-year deal, actually. Yeah. There is still an out, just like Tim Tebow had with the SEC network. He can still sign an NFL contract and go play if someone wants him. But he will call a weekly ESPN/ABC college football game, and he will also contribute to their college football playoff, Super Bowl, and other major event coverage.
I honestly think this is right up his alley. And I'll never take away, I think oftentimes in this whole mix where he's bounced around and wasn't an everyday starter, he did have a great season in Washington. And you don't know what happens if it became because of the injury or it became a mental thing because of the injury. Like if he never got injured, Washington may be a top of that division the last few years. But it played out the way it played out. But I think this fits him personality-wise. If you've never seen him in front of a camera, he's got charisma. He knows the position. He was a Heisman Trophy winner at Baylor. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he won the Heisman.
Yeah.
And I think this is right up his alley. I think he's going to excel in this role.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what it looks like. I've never really seen RG3 interviews. I still want him to play, man. And Chris knows, I have been lobbying for teams to sign RG3 the entire offseason, specifically the Philadelphia Eagles.
I think it would be a good pickup for
him. Chris also wanted a backup for his Jets. We'll get to who they did sign now. A veteran backup. So, but yeah, we'll have to see what this looks like and how all the personnel shifting at ESPN works. Who's going to call what games and whatnot. All right, just today, after last night's game, Steelers wide receiver James Washington has requested a trade. Former second-round pick, 2017, I believe. Maybe earlier than that. I can't remember. I believe it's 17, though, because 17, 18, 19, 20. I don't know. Regardless, he really wants to trade because he hasn't received the playing time that he wants last year and this preseason. I agree with mostly everyone that's been chiming in on this, though. For one, there's not going to be many suitors. And for two, James Washington has not shown anything really worthwhile in his NFL career so far.
I mean, he put up some numbers. I think the one thing that maybe I didn't realize in reading this, because I read his request that was put out on social media, ESPN specifically, is Big Ben actually lobbied for him to get a little bit more snaps during the regular season last year. So I don't know if that means that he sees something in him, or he was just trying to keep the team together. Does that make sense? And happy.
Yeah, it's just I don't understand. You know, like I said, I don't personally think there's much value to him right now for the Steelers. It's going to be a minimal pick or a preseason player for player trade. Because, like I said, I just have not seen enough in his time with the Steelers. And there's been guys that have been drafted lower than him that have outshined him.
Right.
They had Chase Claypool. They had Deontay Johnson. So
I agree 100% with you. I didn't know about Big Ben, like, lobbying. Like, I agree with you. Like, what has he, show me what you've done to stay in the league, right? But I don't know if ESPN just threw that in there to make it more of an interesting article, but it was like, it showed the percentage of snaps he had and how Ben kind of lobbied to have him on the field a little bit more. And I was like, I wonder if that is to kind of keep team chemistry in the locker room or what. If you hear crying, my sons are really upset that they can't see me right now.
Yeah, no, I know Ben does like him. It's business. And you got to play the best people. So
that's the name of the game. And I think that's the great word that I would use next for what we're about to talk about.
Yeah. So more business on the other side of the state here. The Eagles creating a boatload of space, 14.014 million in cap space to be exact, converting 8.49 million of right tackle Lane Johnson's base salary and 9.061 million of DN Derek Barnett's base salary into signing bonuses. They also added 4 voidable years on the back end of Barnett's contract.
That is just, you want to get into professional sports, get into statistics, actuary sciences, accounting. Like, this is where this helps the Eagles so much.
Capology is a growing science in professional sports. Well, for football.
Well, it's big business. It's law firms. It's universities. I hate to use this as an example because, like when you talk about like firefighters say never watch firefighter movies to learn anything. And I'm not saying it's totally Hollywood, but draft day, Charlotte and I turn it on every night before the draft. It's just our ritual, her working in sports as well. But, Jennifer Gardner's job is to figure out the cap space, and that is so important. That person's got to be around the GM and the coach and the scouts, because if we trade for this and trade at that slot, how much do we have here and there? And that's the truth of that. The whole entirety of that movie, that's the one truth, right? Is we better ask the cap person.
And I want David goddamn Putney just because I feel like it. I'm not going to say the rest of that line right now, but
and eat them too. No.
There is something about pancakes in there.
Do you want to continue to stay here and coach this team now? Let me do my job. Kevin Costner, GOAT, baby.
The reason why I want to become a GM, that movie. Freshman year of college. But anyways, also with the Eagles, actually this will start a line of listing guys that got activated off the COVID list this week. So they activated safety Andrew Adams off the list. Washington, they got guard Brandon Sheriff and defensive tackle Deron Payne back. Vikings finally got Kirk Cousins back off the COVID list after his close contact with Kellen Mond. The Ravens finally getting quarterback Lamar Jackson back off it as well. PUP list activations. The Titans.
Your good friend.
They got linebacker Bud Dupree back. And the Giants also activated linebacker Blake Martinez off the PUP list as well. I wasn't sure if Martinez was on the PUP or the COVID because it didn't say on the tweet that I saw about it, but I believe he was on the PUP. I think he had been dealing with an issue from last season, injury-wise. Before we go on a slew of Giants news, there is one other New York piece of news that just came across like 5 minutes before the show. The Jets, they placed guard Alex Lewis on the exempt/left squad list, which is not a list we hear much from, but he doesn't count against the 90-man roster now, so they can sign someone to take his place. Not exactly sure what the entire situation is there. That was pretty much the entirety of the tweet. So, like I said, boatload of Giants news. So,
there's a lot of Giants news.
Linebacker Todd Davis and offensive lineman Joe Looney retired. They literally just signed these guys, and they retired. So I don't know if they don't like what Joe Judge is doing. Yeah, I don't know if we want to go down that Joe Judge road right now about that practice that happened this week. I don't know if you heard about that, Mark.
I mean, I did, and I actually, as a coach, when you're the head coach, you got to be able to read a situation, and sometimes you might use choice words, and I know that they're professionals that make more than you, and I think if you're going to do that, you own it. And there's going to be people that either want to play with you or don't want to play with you, but you're in game, right? It goes back to building a culture and building an identity and being who you are as a coach. And there were players that loved it, right? There were people that came out publicly and said, we needed that. You know, there were people that said, I've seen it when he was at the Patriots, and that's why everybody talks about Belichick. I actually stayed to play under this guy on special teams and this and that. And so, you know, I think Daniel Jones, I think he earned a ton of respect with his teammates.
Yeah, so for anyone that didn't hear about it, there was a scuffle that happened in Giants practice. Daniel Jones ended up on the bottom of a pile, essentially. And Joe Judge went off on the entire team, made them run 100-yard gassers, plus push-ups.
Yep.
I think they did about 100 push-ups as well, eventually, when it all added up. And then he kicked the coaching staff out of the team huddle at the end and just lit into all the players. So,
but in my opinion, that's taking ownership. So you're telling your coaches, you know, I don't want you guys to be bad guys. I'm going to be the bad guy because I'm the leader at the top, right? And I think, and I know this old school coaching, this is not the way that players have been handled in the last decade. Maybe a little bit less because you have AAU, you have these numbers. Everybody just wants to please everybody. But you're telling me that Nick Saban doesn't light into his team like that? You're telling me that I know Kirby Smart lights into his team and I'm just saying this is the level before you get there. And I think that it's such an anomaly nowadays that it's not that he's doing this every day. It would be different if Judge was doing this every day. He wouldn't last, right? But this is an instance where everybody knows the quarterback has to stay healthy because you can't win games without a QB1 in the NFL. And he's you want your guys to be competitive and get into kind of some scuffles. But at the same time, he's going, all right, I'm at the top. Get out of the way. I'm going to talk to my players. And he's hitting it home, right? Those are the type of guys that I want to go to war with. And I have this motto as a coach, and I've won a state championship in the high school level. And I've been around college and this and that is sports is war without weapons. You're literally lining up next in front of somebody and trying to get to the end zone. And you're using your body as a weapon. You don't have swords, you don't have guns, you don't have grenades, you don't have tanks, but you have yourself. And it's war without weapons. And you're telling me during war that no one's ever going to yell at you or drop an F-bomb or say a profanity, and maybe people don't like that. And he's not doing it every day. It was an instant. And I think that some of these guys maybe rally behind him, and if they don't, then as a coach, I would even say, fine. We talk about it being a business. We're going to replace you then.
Yeah, I mean, I know that kind of coaching worked on me. I mean, I was raised rough and tumble, hard nosed, so I understand how that can work. But I mean, I know players are softer nowadays. But anyways, I also understand what you're saying about the head coach wants to be the bad guy sometimes, and being a positional coach for a season for high school, I understand that, the head coach will light in, and then you'll get feedback at the positional coaching level from all the position rooms. So
maybe the Giants have a breakout year. Who knows?
No, they won't. But Giants injuries here. So they lost tight end Levine Toilolo for the year. He tore his Achilles in practice this week. Also, on a bigger note, free agent acquisition wide receiver Kenny Galladay. He's out 2 to 3 weeks. Slight hamstring pull, they said. But hamstrings are finicky. It can last.
That's probably the worst injury for somebody that wants to go downfield, that has to plant on routes. That stinks.
He better not be on the field until week 1. I'm just saying. If you want to succeed, Giants, that is. Just it's up to you. Other major injuries here. Colts guard Quentin Nelson. He has the same exact foot injury as his quarterback, Carson Wentz. Also got surgery on his foot.
I thought that
same window, 5 to 12 weeks.
Same injury. That's just crazy.
Well, it's Carson's fault. I mean, he brought it. He brought the injury bug to Indianapolis, and he just left a little bit in Philadelphia. So, yeah, the Colts are really banged up. Him, Carson Wentz, Ryan Kelly has been out of practice. Darius Leonard also has been out of practice.
You picked the Colts to beat a few teams in the NFC West, and I told you I'm suspicious of the Colts, and these injuries are making me think I'm on to something.
I had the Colts going 0-2 though. Seahawks Rams are their first 2 games, I believe.
0-2, but I think the Cardinals could get them. I mean, they might be healthy by that time, but
I just didn't think they would be ready at the start of the season to play the likes of the Seahawks and Rams. So.
They're not going to.
Also, major injury news. Not major injury, but major because of who it is. Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson today. He sustained a sprained left AC joint, which can linger as well, just like hammies. But I think he'll be all right. He's really young, so
he's really good too.
Yeah. Another wide receiver injured This one for the Panthers, wide receiver Keith Kirkwood. Scary situation in Carolina this week at practice. He suffered a concussion after a helmet-to-helmet hit with now released safety JT Ivy.
Matt Rule was not playing around.
Yeah. And I mean, I wish there was better video and closer up video than what they had on social media. It did look like he led into it. Unfortunately, it ended up in a concussion for Keith Kirkwood, and I'd be out of a job. So
I think he'll land on a practice squad somewhere. Maybe make a roster.
Yeah.
Unless he's blackmailed. Blackball is the word, I think.
I did like his response, saying, I'm not a dirty player.
I was trying to jar the ball loose. And what you have to, video, anytime you replay, even during the regular season, there's sometimes where it looks like someone deliberately just, they're defenseless. And there's other times where people are distorting their body when they're going full speed. I try to remind people that, especially Georgia fans, so hear me out, at the NCAA level, Georgia fans thinks we never do anything wrong or this or that. And I'm like, or other teams always have the wrong intent. And I try to remind people, these guys are going 100 miles per hour, right? They're going after the ball. They're trying to stop you. And sometimes you leave your feet or someone ducks a certain way and your head ends up hitting them, in the money spot that the NFL or the NCAA doesn't like. So that's hard. And then other times it does look very malicious. You know what I mean?
I do sometimes. There are certain situations where I do wish we had a targeting rule in the NFL, but also there are some times where I wish it wasn't a part of the NCAA rules. So.
It goes back to people are moving. These are top athletes moving and trying to do this. I think majority of the time, I would go out on a limb and say majority of the time, people, you can't say, well, they're trying to hurt them. Well, you're trying to tackle someone. What does that even mean? People are just trying to make a big play. I wish that it would be replaced with someone's trying to make a big play. They're trying to make you fumble it, right? They don't want you to catch the football. And in doing that, sometimes it becomes now with the way that rules are written outside of the boundaries, majority of the time, I don't think they do it on purpose. Does that make sense? They're just trying to make a football play that when they were 8 years old, they were taught to do this. When they were 15, they were taught to do this. When they were freshmen, when they were rookies, they were taught to do this. And then everybody's changing the rules constantly. And sometimes you don't adapt to it as fast. It's not bounty gate, right? People aren't putting thousands of dollars to go knock someone out. They just want the football. It's competitive.
Except when it's IK and M Poly against Geno Smith in the locker room. That's
that's too funny.
All right, other injuries here. The Eagles, 2 defensive ones here. Linebacker Davion Taylor, second-year guy out of Colorado last year. He has a calf injury week to week there. Originally had a quad injury and was day-to-day, but now has a calf and is week to week. Free agent acquisition, defensive end Ryan Kerrigan. He has a right thumb injury. I believe he's day-to-day. I didn't see the exact status of him. Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson. He has foot and ankle injuries right now, or issues. I don't know if they're necessarily injuries. I just know that's why he hasn't been practicing the last couple of days, because of his foot and ankle. So your Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford. He had hit his throwing thumb off a helmet in practice the other night. Was swollen. X-rays were negative, thankfully. I am banking on a big season from Matt Stafford. So
that's the only thing that I think worries me, and I hate to say it, the way that the Rams' luck is, ever since the Patriots beat them as such underdogs, I wouldn't doubt if something bad happens at the quarterback position this year. Oh, we got this trade. Everybody's excited. Bam. Rolled ankle.
Doesn't
Bam.
matter. Matt Stafford's played through worse.
Back in. No, he is a tough son of a gun. He's a tough son of a gun.
One last injury here. Another scary situation. Jets practice. Offensive lineman Cameron Clark. He suffered a spinal cord contusion after getting carted off at practice.
When was that? Do you know?
Not sure. A couple days ago.
Any news updates?
No. They just said spinal cord contusion. That's what the injury officially was.
He should be good. Just a spinal cord, if you didn't know, for all of our listeners. But still, scary situation.
Depending on where it is, could be very uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. You might not be sleeping. Might be tender to walk. You just never really know.
And I know my back, and I don't even have a injured spinal cord. I know the center of my back is always killing me. So, let's go to a legal / interesting situation that occurred.
Yeah.
The Vikings, they waived their 2020 first round pick corner Jeff Gladney.
That's something.
So he did clear waivers. He's now a free agent, free to sign with anyone. But the reasoning for the waiving was he was indicted by a grand jury in Texas on a felony domestic violence charge for an incident occurring in April. In this incident, he apparently impeded breathing, intentionally, knowingly, and recklessly caused bodily injury and applied pressure to a woman's neck and throat. Could face up to 10 years in prison if found guilty.
These are no joke charges. If that does that, like, anytime you put felony on something, it's not a joke. You've seen people in the NFL come back, Greg Hardy, maybe one, and you have to let the law play out. I'm a firm believer in that. You're going to law school. And so I'm not talking politics. I'm not talking men and women here, but these are some serious charges. And they felt that it was serious enough to say, hey, can't keep you on the roster. I think that's kind of a word that I would use would be funny, not the charges, funny for the organization, because, like, Mike Hughes that I know, they said it's time to move on from this first round pick. Well, now it's another first round cornerback pick that they're moving on from, and that's what I just kind of find. I guess funny is not a word. It's an irony, right? Like, you were going to go in one direction, and then this direction kind of halted as well.
Yeah, it's tough because they really needed him. Their secondary, they were trying to rebuild it on the fly there in Minnesota. And I agree with what his agent put out after the release, saying that they released him essentially because he was indicted, but an indictment doesn't mean you're guilty. An indictment just means you're going to trial.
Yep. And you got to see how it plays out.
Yeah. So really, I don't know the exact workings of the CBA and whatnot, but I would think that Jeff Gladney would have a possible case if he wanted to bring it to the NFLPA.
100%.
So,
and you know this even more than me. Well, we both know it. We've had law classes together, and there's some people that are. How do I attack this? Like, I feel like it's double jeopardy in some sense. And I understand the NFL is allowed to set their own standards and expectations as an employer, but I think what we are getting away from right now in this time and age is, okay, we're not going to let the law play out, right? We're going to let go of people. We're going to condemn people publicly. We're going to do these things, but we have a court system that's what defines us different than other countries, in my opinion. That's why some people are capable of being defenders and others think that it's the most vile thing in the world, where I actually have a lot of respect for people that defend people, right? Because that doesn't mean that you are agreeing that this person is not guilty. What you're doing is you're providing a service that someone has to have the evidence to convict this person, right? And that's what separates us from just condemning people and throwing rocks at them and throwing them into a fire and a firing squad. We have a judicial system. And the Vikings at least said, hey, I don't want to deal with this. You go away. Where I think you're 100%. He would have a case like, okay, I was indicted, but nothing's been to trial yet. So why did you release me?
Yeah, wrongful termination would be the possible case that he would have. But, I mean, we do see that quite often when a player has a legal situation ongoing. But obviously, we didn't see it with Deshaun Watson. He's still on the Texans roster. A couple other guys, you know.
And I would say the difference in that, and you would know it like I do, is Deshaun Watson's is civil suits, if that makes sense. Where this sounds like it's a felony is where you have to go through the public, you have to have a jury set on it. Civil suits, I could take you to a civil suit because you told me I'm a really bad podcast host. You know, there's something as simple as that. I can take you to civil court, and you don't have to have that evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. I could just find one little thing and convince a judge where you have to give me $5 to clear my name. And I think that's the difference. If Deshaun Watson's plaintiffs take it to a public court of opinion, I think there's no way that he would be able to play this year. It would be something like we're seeing with Gladney.
Yeah. And that's also where the commissioner's exempt list has come into play in the past, which we haven't seen a player go on that list in quite some time.
Long time, yeah.
I'm not even sure who the last one was, because it wasn't Josh Gordon, I don't believe.
Was it Hardy when he was a Panther? No.
It might have been.
Before the Cowboys signed him, he was on the list. I think.
Yeah, that's who it might have been. But anyways, back to NFL news here. Josh Allen got paid today. It is payday Friday.
Back up the Brinks truck, baby.
$150
million guaranteed.
The Bills giving their quarterback 6-year, $258 million extension through the 2027 season, $150 million guaranteed, as Mark said.
The Bills dropping bills.
And I know someone said about, well, this makes Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson very happy. So there's also someone else on that list. I couldn't remember who it was, though. That is up for a deal soon.
In that draft class, as far as I know,
Kyler Murray as well.
So he'll be a year after.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the prime position. That's all I can say. It's the prime position, and I've been a big fan of Allen's. I've also been a big critic. I mean, beginning of last year, I said I would have loved to draft him in the draft class because he's big. I thought he had a gunslinger arm. He could throw off one foot, but it didn't translate to wins. Well, guess what? It translated to wins. And now he's getting paid. And I think I love McDermott up there. Or did I say it wrong? Sorry.
Sure,
Uh,
yeah.
love him as a coach. I think that was the one of the factors of the Panthers being so good as a fan, and so I like this, and I think it's built in to spread out the money so that they can go and do some things to build around him. And I also see him being 6 years down the road is a big difference in the NFL. You know,
Mhm.
keep knocking on the door, and it's in the third year. I could see him being in that division and losing to the Patriots some early in his career. Okay, let's restructure, my contract. And you and I both know, like, you could give someone, you could defer that money and say that Josh Allen, we think that his optimal playing weight is 215 pounds. And as long as you come to training camp at 215, we can put that money all into that bonus, right? You can do a lot of different things with this money on a 6-year deal.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to look at what the contract structure is with that. I probably won't be looking at that one too much as a part of my NFL draft Bible duties, looking at the 2022 free agent class, be looking at some contracts like that. But yes, I love Josh Allen. I love the Buffalo Bills. They are going to be the AFC participant in Super Bowl 56. Lock it down right now.
Let's get it.
Against Tom Brady. So but other signings here, the Saints, they re-signed linebacker Quan Alexander to a 1-year, $3 million deal. He had been a free agent, played with the Saints last season. That's why it's a re-signing, but it's a long re-signing process. He had to wait a long time in order to get back to New Orleans. Also played at LSU, so he already has a foothold on the Louisiana area. Raiders, they signed defensive tackle Gerald McCoy to a 1-year, $2 million deal.
I like this move.
Up front. Yeah, lost last season to a preseason injury with the Dallas Cowboys. So
it's all about health, right? And health. Are you healthy and can you be productive? And I like it for the Raiders.
Not sure how old he is now. I think in my mind I have 33.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, around there, 32, 33. I mean, I'm more excited if you're going to move on to the Jets signing. I love this. I love this. Is that the next?
Yeah, 33. I was right on it. Look at that.
He was 32. So, hey, I mean, at that age, you just have to produce or you're gonna be out of the league.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to the Jets signing just yet. There was one other one that I added in here, another quarterback. The Titans, they signed a backup quarterback. It is Matt Barkley, 1-year, $1.1 million deal.
So I'm gonna pick your brain. Was he a backup last year or was he out of football?
I believe he was a backup somewhere. Matt Barkley usually finds a job.
I know.
I don't know if he was still in Buffalo.
Backup, he was at USC when I was much younger. You know what I mean?
Yes, I was correct. He was still in Buffalo last year. Actually played in that game that Josh Allen got injured in.
Okay, yeah.
197 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 80.9.
He can play.
Yeah. Yeah, was with Buffalo for the last 3 seasons.
He moved, I guess 3 seasons he doesn't really move around, but like he's not necessarily the gold standard, but he reminds me of Chase Daniel. Like he has been a backup for a while.
Like I said, man, Matt Barkley usually finds a job. He's really good at that. Even when he's not the greatest on the field. So he'll be competing with Logan Woodside for the backup job to Ryan Tannehill. I think there's another quarterback in there, I believe, too.
Yeah, I think this was signed for some competition. I mean, I think he can
on the depth chart on ESPN though. So
I think he has a chance to make the roster.
I miss my guy from Hawaii that I'm blanking on his name, Cole McDonald, who they drafted last year in the 7th round. Signed with the Cardinals practice squad. But anyways, let's get to the Jets once again. They have a veteran quarterback like Chris has wanted. Probably not the guy that Chris thought he was going to get, but
In the quarterback room, probably I'm with you. Not the quarterback you're thinking of, but can I just say it? 17th team, baby.
Well,
I think that's awesome. Can you imagine his man room? He's got 17 jerseys in there, maybe 16 because he was with the Jets for 10 days, but.
yeah. So it is quarterback Josh Johnson. Like Mark said, it is his 17th team change. So
I just think that's cool. Not everybody, right? Not everybody can be Tom Brady, but you're still in the league.
so he's actually only recorded stats for
How many?
4 teams.
Oh,
The Bucks when he was drafted in the second round in 2009.
Bears has to be one.
For 3 seasons. The Browns in 2012, the Bengals in 2013, and Washington in 2018.
So, do you only keep those jerseys, or do you keep a jersey with your name on it from every team that you've ever changed?
So
we got to get him on the podcast. Please, someone hook us up.
So yeah, his transactions on Pro Football Reference are very interesting. Well, it only goes back to 2012. I don't know why, but yeah, he signed with the Niners, was cut, signed with the Browns, then he signed with the Bengals in 2013. They cut him in 2014. Signed back with the Niners, got cut in September, re-signed. Cut again in October, re-signed. He was signed by the Niners about 4 or 5 times in 2014 alone. Back with the Bengals in 2015, cut in training camp, signed with the Jets. Was cut with them, like it says on the script, 10 days in 2015 with the Jets. Was on the Colts a little bit in 2015, a couple times. With the Bills, the Ravens, in 2016, the Giants in 2016, re-signed with the Giants on a 2-year deal actually in 2017, but then cut in October, and then somehow made it to the Jags in 2017, was cut, signed with the Texans a couple times in 17, the Raiders in 2018, Washington football team, late 2018, was with the Lions in 2019, back with the Niners last season, signed a reserve futures contract this January, cut on June 1st by the Niners, and then signed with the Jets this week. But he has played in 4 different professional football leagues.
Yes.
NFL, the UFL. Is that the United Football League?
Yep.
The AAF, the Alliance of American Football, and the XFL. So, yeah, I liked him in the when I watched him in the XFL last year or 2 years ago. I mean, it's been 2 years now since the XFL has been on. Jesus.
It seems. Yeah, it has been.
But we got the XFL next year. It's back. So I'm hyped for that. We'll have spring football once again. But yes, so Josh Johnson, we'll have to get Chris's thoughts when he's on next time.
Oh, he's excited. He probably is going to be their starting quarterback. No, I'm just kidding.
Other free agency signings here, a couple more. The Bears, they signed linebacker Alec Ogletree, former Ram, Mark.
Hey, he was good in the time that we had him, especially when he was healthy.
Yeah, hasn't been so great since being with the Steelers and now with the Bears as well. And the last free agency signing here, the Jags, they picked up wide receiver / kick returner and punt returner for that matter, Tavon Austin today. So.
Tavon Austin, one of the worst. Sorry, not skills wise. I hated the pick.
Was that ninth overall?
I'm not a. You have to be a certain height for me to pick you in the top 10, and it didn't match, and it never translated. He had one or two games here and there, and so that's my take. I don't want to go off subject.
One of the things that I remember Tavon Austin in St. Louis, the one punt return, where I don't know who the other guy was, but he faked catching it, and the punt actually went to the other side of the field to Tavon Austin. And he took it to the house.
It was a good play. I know. Yep, you're right.
I don't even know what year that was. I just remember the play.
Gosh, I think we were still in St. We were in the Edward Jones.
It was in St. Louis, yeah. I just don't know what year it was. All right, visits here. The Falcons, they hosted former Texans and Titans running back Deontay Foreman for a visit. Big one, the Raiders. They hosted linebacker KJ Wright for a visit. Long-time Seahawk. And would make sense to go to Vegas. Gus Bradley, now the defensive coordinator there. Obviously, Gus Bradley, before being the Jaguars head coach, was the pretty much the creator of the Legion of Boom and the Seahawks Super Bowl trips. So,
yep.
And then a couple workouts. The Giants, I told you, more Giants news. They worked out wide receiver Josh Doxson and quarterback Brian Lewerke. And the Colts, they worked out a bunch of safeties, including Clinton Dix.
That's a name that has been in the league and played some playoff games.
Still thought he was going to sign with the Cowboys, but they signed Malik Hooker instead. So,
do you think he has a reunion with his former employee?
The Packers.
Yeah, you think
or Washington?
Well, I mean, I guess Packers. I mean, that's where he played most.
And Chicago.
I'm thinking Packers. Like you kept Rodgers. Like, do you sign him for insurance, or is that tenure way past it and he's not coming back?
I just think he sucks. He's not that good.
Well, I think he was elevated by opportunity, if that makes sense. Like, didn't have anybody for a while there, and he was in a lot of the plays because people picked on him, and so it's an easy name to remember, right? Clinton Dixon, pass breakup. That was one of 20 passes in a game, right?
Yeah. So I think when he got drafted to the Packers, I believe it was 2010. Coming off the Super Bowl championship that year. He was coming into a really good defense already. Right. So that helped him, I think, establish his name. And being I believe he was the first round pick, maybe second round. I can't remember.
And then after leaving, he is not the same.
Yeah. Okay, that is all the NFL news. Nothing else has popped up on the Twitter feed. So let's get to
talk about the tight ends.
Tight end rankings, top 15. I was thinking about doing top 20, but there's not really that many. So apparently Kirk Cousins has temporarily lost a sponsorship with a hospital in Michigan because of his COVID-19 stance.
Oh, bummer, man. A millionaire lost his sponsorship. No, I'm just kidding.
And actually, one thing I forgot to say, I said nothing else popped up on the Twitter feed, but one thing that is really good. Troy Polamalu, who apparently had tested positive for COVID recently, will be in Canton to get enshrined tomorrow. I believe he's in the 21 class.
Hey, he might have one of the best speeches you've ever heard. I mean, he's gonna have Head and Shoulders right there in front. He might start washing his hair. I'm just kidding.
But I mean,
not to get in before we get into Troy, I think it's funny that what made the news is Kirk Cousins is no longer sponsored by a Michigan hospital. You ever thought that's kind of funny? Like, if I'm a Minnesota fan or I'm a Michigan or I'm a Lions fan, well, good. Make him stay on Minnesota side now.
Well, but he played at Michigan State, though. That's why.
I know. But like, if you're a Lions fan, good. Stay in Minnesota. I don't care where you went to school. No.
But Troy Polamalu, I don't know. He was never very vocal, though.
He's not, and that's why, like, I'm not saying it's funny, and I made that. We all know his famous commercials, and that's why I think the commercials were funny, is he didn't say a lot, right? It was always like a hair thing or one or two words. So I'm actually interested in hearing his speech. You know, like, maybe it's short, maybe it's long, but maybe you get to really hear some of these guys' stories, right?
Bet on the under. Bet on the under minutes for Troy Polamalu, people.
10 minutes. Under 10 minutes. No.
All right. Anyways, fantasy tight ends. So there's not a Steeler on here, unfortunately, until we get to the rookies. But
I'm sorry. When's the last time you used a tight end?
Keith.
All right. So we go in Chris's.
Chris is first. Chris is first.
All right. So I like Jonnu Smith. We know that he had a breakout campaign with the Titans, and people are excited that he's going to become a Patriot. Right? Am I wrong? Am I thinking of someone else?
Yeah.
And so we know what Belichick has done in the tight ends. We know who have played with him, whether they're here with us not in present, whether they retired, came back. He has developed this position. You don't have the Tom Brady, obviously, at the quarterback position. But if I am a young tight end, and I think he's athletic enough to almost be, well, he's that hybrid tight end wide receiver. Maybe that there's new heights that he can reach, but it could be the complete opposite. And that's where I would want to be, where I would want to pick your brain. Okay, you're going from having Tannehill, who I think is a better pocket passer than he's going to have in New England, unless Mac Jones. I mean, there's stuff coming out of camp that Mac Jones is the real deal.
Well, I won't talk about Jonnu Smith yet. I have him much higher on my list.
Okay, well, I would agree there with you. Then I loved what he did with the Titans. This is Chris' list, and I think it can go even higher.
So my number 15, though, is Evan Ingram. Now, this was a struggle for me to pick number 15. There's a bunch of guys in play here. Tight end 15 last year, tight end 15 projected this year. That's where I have him. So fits perfectly in. I was surprised to know that he played all 16 last year. Usually when you think of Evan Ingram, you think about, well, he missed this many games.
Yeah.
But he did play all 16 last year, gonna play 17 this year. Really good amount of targets. I like the over 100.
I like him in the red zone. I like it. I think Galladay, if he can stay healthy, even opens him up for middle downfield if Galladay can stretch it. And I know that we've had these quarterbacks, and it's not a rating. I think Daniel Jones, obviously it's a make or break season for somebody that you drafted, right? But I actually think that he has intangibles to be a good quarterback. And if he goes over the hump, I think it's a plus for Ingram. It's a plus for Galladay. It's a plus for the whole organization, right?
Yeah, that's the issue. Daniel Jones is the issue with Evan Ingram's fantasy value, though. As you can see, he only scored 1 touchdown last year. 2, technically.
That's ridiculous. That's absurd. You should oh my gosh, you should. And that's from the quarterback position. You're 100% right.
So that's why he's down at 15 and his limited production. And, Kenny Galladay is going to hurt his target share as well. He's not going to get over 100 targets. I do like the ESPN projections. I think they're fine. That is why Evan Ingram is a solid tight end 2, provided he stays on the field.
Right. And I agree 100% that the targets will go down. But I think if you can get deeper balls, then maybe the touchdowns go up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, my 14 here, Irv Smith Jr. for the Vikings, first-year starter after Kyle Rudolph departed for the Giants. Only played 13 games last year. Still ended up tight end 22. I was kind of surprised that he ended up that high, if you want to call that high, top 25 tight end. But if you look at tight end 22 in a 12-man league, that still makes him a backup tight end,
Right.
A rosterable tight end. So almost scoring 100 points last year, projected as tight end 13. ESPN loves him this year. So one spot above where I have him. I like the projections. I have no qualms with that, especially if the Justin Jefferson thing lingers.
So that was
Smith, target 2 targets.
That would be that's exactly what popped in my head when I saw his name come on the screen. Okay, well, Justin Jefferson isn't healthy. Obviously, you'll get more targets and whatnot. The only thing is, I actually think Cousins is obviously there's worse quarterbacks to have in the NFL. But people talk about Cam Newton's old talk. Are you going to have the MVP Cam Newton or this? Well, he hasn't been good for a minute, right? But Cousins is still my Jekyll and Hyde of the NFL. Does that make sense? Like one night you're going to have whoa, that dude, no reason they franchised him so much.
Well, you like that Kirk Cousins.
Then you have a bad night, no reason, no wonder they got rid of him, but someone still paid him. And so who are you going to have? And I think that's a high projection from ESPN, but I would say this. Tight ends, to me, any projection you give them, I always want to go more touchdowns because of the way offenses are ran. I think tight ends can get a bunch of touchdowns, but maybe his targets, I don't know, maybe his yardage, I'm not even going to talk. Maybe this is a great slot, right?
And that's the thing. That's the thing. Without Kyle Rudolph, there's no competition at the tight end position.
It could go up, go down. You could fall on your face. You could be fourth best tight end in the league, and we don't know because Kyle Rudolph's not there.
Yeah, second round pick in 2019, I believe. I always get my draft years mixed up when it's not quarterbacks. I mean, I even get quarterback draft years mixed up. So, but anyways, yeah, high draft pick, hasn't got an opportunity to start until this season. We'll have to see. I think right off the bat, he's third in the pecking order right now for targets. I don't necessarily account for Dalvin Cook in that situation because I don't think they throw to running backs as much.
They do. If you look at Dalvin, they don't. His numbers are on the ground.
So I think he's third in the pecking order for targets right now. And like we said, if Justin Jefferson continues to have a shoulder issue throughout the year, he could be second behind Adam Thielen. So
and you're right. With Rudolph, sometimes I forget about, and that's another thing about Ingram, right? Rudolph is there. So is that a good 15 pick or does he fall outside? And let me tell everybody, I want to say on all these pictures, gosh, he's got the size and athleticism. But to be a tight end nowadays, I think these are the most athletic people on the field, hands down. They're semi receivers, they block. Some of them I wouldn't be surprised if you saw handoffs in the future. Someone lines up, in the slot or in the backfield as a tight end. These guys, to me, are the cream of the crop athletes in the NFL.
Well, yeah, that's what Evan Ingram does. Travis Kelce runs the ball.
I mean,
Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee both ran it for the Rams last year.
Exactly. I mean, and you got to look at the Tony Gonzalez's and the Antonio Gates. They were multiple sport athletes. This position, I think, going forward, if I'm an offensive coordinator or I want to be an NFL coach or whatever, I could expand this position into whatever I want it. And I think that's going to get a lot of people their breakthrough.
Okay, so just before we go to Chris's 14 here, and one piece of news that just came out from Adam Schefter. Dwayne Brown, just like Jamal Adams, is sitting out of practice for the Seahawks, seeking a long-term extension, getting $10 million this year, looking for long-term security for the end of his career. Okay, Chris's number 14 is Gronk. Tied for tight end 8 last year, tight end 16 projection this year. Go ahead, Mark.
No, he's gonna obviously the whole story behind this, right, is he was out of football, he came into football, he had a great playoff, and now we're throwing him back into position of the top tight ends. Granted, it's only 14th, right? Like it's not number 1 or 2 or 3, but I still think there's a piece of the whole puzzle to winning that Gronk doesn't have to do a lot. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to. He has to be a locker room presence. He had I'm going to tell you guys right now. I know that people will laugh at it and scuffle at it, but I won a state high school basketball championship. And the people that played for me, I had a Division I cornerback. I had a Division II linebacker. This was in basketball. I've had players that played overseas professionally. You have to have personalities that make everything gel. And you want a player-led team if you've never heard of this. I don't need to come in and be the cop every day. When you're winning, your cops are Tom Brady. They're Gronk. They're, your Leonard Fournettes that have bounced around and really want to win. And I still think that they're going to use them this way. Are you really going to go to Gronk 10 times on a Sunday to win your division with all the weapons you have? Gronk is a locker room presence. He's a bailout. He is going to block for you. And this isn't taken away from his ability. If he gets back into shape and focused, he could be a top 5 tight end. But I don't think you need him until later down the road in week 12 and 13 and 14 when you're battling for the 1 seed, in the playoffs. When you're needing them in the Super Bowl. You need somebody to trust that's going to block for you and get out of his block, and he's downfield and it's not going to be a flag, and he's going to catch it. And oh my gosh, Gronk didn't do anything until the Super Bowl. Well, now let's put him 14th in the projection. I still don't see him in this spot. That's me. He could make me look like an idiot because he's now back after being off, but I don't think that's his job anymore. He's proved to everybody what he is capable of. And I think if you're going to continue to win as the Buccaneers, it's got to be late in the season. The only thing that can make me think that he's 14th is, man, he's a killer during the regular season, and then you flip your game script and he doesn't do anything in the playoffs.
Yeah. So going back to Evan Ingram, I forgot to say, Chris had Evan Ingram as a sleeper. I have Gronk as a sleeper. He's not on my list. I really liked reading ESPN's blurb on him on their projections page, and it makes a whole lot of sense when you read that, because you're right. He didn't do much in the regular season. His overall season statistics, tight end 8 looks fantastic for fantasy. But what happened last year was he had about 5 or 6 games out of 16 where he just went off, scored 10 or more fantasy points, And those were the only games where he scored you enough fantasy points to actually be a starter. The rest of the games, he was in the tight end 20s area. So that's what concerns me with Gronk. Also, they mentioned OJ Howard coming back off of his injury. And the games that Gronk and OJ Howard played together last year, OJ Howard actually got more targets than Gronk did, 19 to 15.
Right.
So that also concerns me. I understand why they dropped his numbers, even with an added 17th regular season game. There always is the issue of will Gronk play all 17 as well.
Before we move on, not to interrupt you, here would be my next question too. Like you're gonna put him at 14. I know that the quarterback doesn't get. Let's be honest, guys. The quarterback doesn't get hit in the NFL unless you leave the pocket like Cam Newton sometimes, like Mahomes. Brady isn't leaving the pocket. But let's say something drastic happens and Brady goes down with a broken bone, an ACL injury. Does Gronk still remain a somewhat focal of the offense? These are all questions, and this is not a tight end 1 position, right? We're still talking about tight end 2 and down the line. But like, what if that does happen? Like like he's the golden boy, right? It's Tom Brady. I love him. I've totally changed my perspective, but there is still a possibility that Tom Brady might go down at age 43 with an injury. And, what happens to, not that Gronk isn't good enough, but, we're going to usher in a new quarterback. We have to go downfield more instead of this. You're going to be blocking. That hurts your tight end value, does it not?
Yeah, I don't know if it would really change much. I think Blaine Gabbert likes Mike Evans just as much as Tom Brady does, so.
And don't we all? Gosh.
I freaking hate Mike Evans in fantasy. He steals touchdowns from Chris Godwin every week.
All I'm saying is on the receiver, but I saw where someone put Mike Evans, and I was like, I wish I was on that because I don't care about his numbers. He's automatic like a car wash, people, in the red zone. He's so big. He's so tall. Great hands. People forget, he made – you-know-who look good at Texas A&M.
I had him 15th. All I'm going to say is two receptions for 2 yards and 2 touchdowns. The stupidest fantasy game I've ever watched. Okay, Chris's 13th is one of your former boys, Mark. Gerald Everett moving to a division rival in the Seattle Seahawks. Tight end 24 with the Rams last year and a share with Tyler Higbee. Projected as tight end 26. The tight end position hasn't really been utilized as much as it used to be in Seattle.
That's the thing that scares me, right? Like, it's been all or nothing. Like, we all know how much Russell Wilson has had to do. Didn't have a great running game, but you had people that could go downfield, and then he had to use his legs. So you either have to look at it, in my way, it's twofold. This is really going to help Russell Wilson, and the tight end's going to have good numbers, or this is the only tight end really that's respectable on the Seahawks, and you game plan for it, right? So which one is it going to be?
Well, that's the thing. They have other tight ends that are capable too. Will Dissly was a fantasy darling for a couple of weeks before he got injured. Jacob Hollister has been fantasy relevant at certain points in his career for the Seahawks.
Full season. So if they can be for full seasons, I think this is great.
Yeah. I just think there's, DK, Tyler Lockett, easily 1-2. There is an opportunity to be the third guy in the target share with David Moore now in Carolina. But they also drafted Dwayne Eskridge in the second round. So he is an option. I think they do throw to their running backs a little bit more. Travis Homer, Rashad Penny, those guys coming out of the backfield. Chris Carson doesn't get as many catches, but Homer definitely is probably their catching back. So
here's what I would say about this position. I'm not mad about it. I actually like it. I think it's intriguing for two reasons. One, you're playing with a darn good quarterback. Does that make sense? Like the dude is just good at his job. He can run on the outside. Defensive coordinators hate game planning for him. And there's opportunities to catch the ball, not only on second, third, fourth down, but in the red zone. Does that make sense? And so I would actually say for projection, man, Everett should have 6+ touchdowns, in my opinion. Because you know who Wilson's favorite targets are. You know his tendencies. So as a coaching staff, we have someone that's coming from in the division. Let's utilize them. And I think you can get touchdowns early on before people game plan for that.
yeah, we'll have to see if he's one of the guys Russ looks for on the scramble drill that we know Russ is so patented for doing. I don't have him on my list. I didn't even have him as a sleeper. I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant this year. Sorry, Gerald.
Well, he hasn't been in that slot before, so I can definitely understand that.
My 13 is his former teammate, though, your boy, Tyler Higbee.
Oh, gosh.
Now,
let's hear it.
So
where's his alma mater? Let's hear it.
I have no clue. But anyways, I told Chris this couple weeks back when I had one of my dynasty rookie/veteran free agent drafts, and I missed my pick because it was an email draft, so it was 8 hours to pick, and my pick came overnight during a time that wasn't covered in the stoppage, because my fantasy league has a time period during the night that the timer is stopped. And I don't remember getting an email or anything about the pick. I wake up and I see Tyler Higbee got auto drafted for me in the second round. And I was like, why? What the hell? Like, I don't want Tyler Higbee. I don't want this guy. I don't need tight ends. But then I looked at it and I looked into some of the projections on a couple sites and I was like, Gerald Everett's gone. Matt Stafford comes in. He loves tight ends. We already saw that in Detroit with TJ Hawkinson. So why not? I'll keep him. And I think he can have a good season, man. 15 games last year, like we said, with the timeshare, still finished in the top 20, projected at the same spot, tight end 17 this year. I don't know. I think he's going to be the third guy behind Kupp and Woods.
I have no
Sean Jackson getting much, or Van Jefferson.
I have no qualms about him being the third guy whatsoever, and I actually like it. When he came into the league, I was high on Higbee, and it became one of those things like, okay, how are you being used? And one of the things that I will say is we don't have a dominant running back. And his first few years that he was in the league, guess who he had? and you came out in the flat, you came out in midfield, you blocked, you did different schemes, but the one person that was catching that ball is not on our roster right now. And was the offensive MVP. I'm talking about Mr. Todd Gurley himself. And I think that's obviously he's not lining up in the backfield, but the way that you put formations and the routes that you run and the 10-yard, 8-yard, 5-yard, 15-yard drops, he can catch this. And so I have no qualms with him being right here at number 13. It just goes back to, and that's what I think makes someone that looks kind of like me in the same age, McVay, how are you going to use your tight end this year? How did you use him last year? Kupp was coming back from an injury. Did that make him a better target? But someone could argue that now that Kupp and Woods are both healthy, this has to be your third guy, right? What running back's going to come out of the backfield? What other receiver? And so I like him at this position. He might end up creeping up number 10.
It's so funny you say that because, Chris, that's exactly where he has him at number 10. But
love you, Chris.
Yeah, I think if they could use him like Detroit used Hawkinson, obviously they didn't have their receivers in Detroit that the Rams do. But like I said, Matt Stafford showed that he loves tight ends. I can't recall who it was before Hawk.
It's he came to the Steelers from North Carolina.
Oh, Eric Ebron. Yeah.
He was there for a few years with Matt Stafford.
Yeah. So I mean,
and
I think he'll score more than 4 touchdowns for sure, though.
I would not argue, but I would remind people that Cook was used in the first year for McVay in a way that I really thought if he would have signed with us instead of the Packers would have built on that, right? And so I think this is the one position moving forward that the Rams really – I think if they can get on the offensive side of the ball. We went from a quarterback. We had Gurley. We can't get it settled in the backfield, but we did settle on Kupp and Woods. We let go of Cooks. We need consistency in the running game and the tight end, and this is a chance for him to step up and say, I'm going to be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just like Irv Smith in Minnesota, Higbee with Everett gone really doesn't have much competition behind him at the position. So, okay. My number 12, Noah Fant with Denver Broncos, also played 15 games. He tied Gronk at tight end 8 last year with subpar quarterback play, playing with Drew Lock for the majority of the season. Brett Rippon at one point as well. Projected at tight end 9 this year. Very similar statistics. Actually goes down by 3 points. But I think he'll be fine. And I've been a Drew Lock detractor this offseason, the complete opposite of what I was last offseason. Last offseason, I kept saying I was locked in for Drew Lock in 2020. Did not work out. I think that was partly due in part to an injury early on in the year that really derailed his season. But whether it's Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, Fant's going to put up numbers. It helped him last year with Cortland Sutton being out. So that's why you see the little decrease in his targets. But I still think he's probably the number 1 or number 2 option on the offense.
So I don't disagree with this, but I actually may tackle it a different way. So we've talked about the quarterback situation. We know Bridgewater has been a playoff quarterback. So I'm not going to necessarily – how do I put this? I don't think the quarterback situation is terrible, as bad as people make it in Denver. I actually think there's a lot of competition there. It just might not be that it's top-tier quarterback play, right? But since it's not top-tier quarterback play, I actually think he will get more than 87 targets. And people will say, why? Well, I don't think their offense is going to be geared necessarily going far downfield in what I would call Mile High Stadium, and it's been renamed. That's why I grew up watching, Elway. So I think that gives this, I think, and he is good. He's got good hands. I've seen some tape. I don't get to watch a lot of Broncos football now, being on the East Coast, unless they're playing the Chiefs, because they haven't been good since Peyton Manning, and we know that their defense has been solid. And is it going through some changes? If it can make you give them the ball back, that gives them more targets. And so I actually think that his projections are higher, but does he make those catches? Does he have more touchdowns? I don't think they have a. So who do you think their deep threat is? And I know you're going to say it, but what quarterback's going to get it there? And so I think there's going to be a lot of drop-offs. There's going to be a lot of, it's 2nd and 10, but I'm going to go for the 8-yard instead of the 12-yard pass or the 15-yard pass.
I think it depends who wins the job.
Right. And that's what we know right now.
Yeah, because if you have Drew Lock, obviously he's a big arm. He's going to want to throw the ball down the field. Jerry Jeudy is apparently lighting it up in camp right now in his 2nd year. So, or you have the opposite in Teddy Bridgewater, who's a lot of dink and dunk, dump off stuff to running backs. And I guess I answered that thinking Bridgewater is going to play a lot. He's got familiarity with the GM that brought him in. And I actually like the gunslinger, and maybe that's used too much, but I think Luck is a gunslinger. And I think with that, I think he's more susceptible to injury. Yeah. Bridgewater was healthy last year. I think that if you pound Luck a few times when he gets out of the pocket and slings it like a young Brett Favre or a young Cutler, and that would be people's worst nightmare in Denver, then who comes to bat? It's Bridgewater, and then he's really going to use Noah. And I think that he could – you're only talking 87 to 93. I think he hits 90 or 89 targets. You're talking about 2 or 3 throws. So maybe I shouldn't get into the weeds on that. That's the good thing that I think about tight ends. I don't think it matters as much for a tight end on who the quarterback is, especially in this case. Bridgewater is going to probably get him 5 to 10 yard throws. Locke will put him 15 to 20 yard throws, but he'll still get targets. So Chris is number 12, who I have much higher. Robert Tonyan out of the Packers. Go ahead, Mark.
Aaron Rodgers is back with the Packers. Did we forget that? And so anytime you have Adams going downfield, Marcus Scantling, like you have, I would be licking my lips being in this position. I don't even care if you didn't have me on the radar, which we obviously have them listed some higher. Like, someone has to be the third option. Someone has to be a check down. Someone has to be every now and then. You know what Aaron Rodgers can do at the line of scrimmage. We're going to make it that everybody thinks that we're going left downfield where we're going outright and I'm hitting my tight end. You're playing with someone that knows the game, right? That's been an MVP multiple times, that is motivated to win a ring. Look at his 2020 stats, TE3. Now we're putting him 10. He's easily can be top 5 with just saying who your quarterback is. So, what do you think?
I have him higher, so I'll talk about him a little bit. Chris's number 11 is Jared Cook. Now, Chris had Noah Fant as a sleeper. I have Jared Cook as a sleeper, but he has him at number 11.
He's a sleeper. I think this is too high. I don't care if you guys agree with me or not. I think Jared Cook has the intangibles to be an exciting tight end in this league. But when has he really performed up to the pedigree that people look at him as an athlete and his size? Did he go to the Packers and just tear it up? No, he had some good seasons, and I think that's because he was under a good quarterback. And I understand I think this is their quarterback. Um, we know out of Oregon, Hebert I think he's kind of the next wave. Him and Burrows, and maybe he has a step in front of Burrows because he didn't get injured. But I just like, okay, maybe he comes and dominates with the Chargers because you have Keenan, and I think Keenan Allen is unheralded. I mean, he's on the top 20 wide receivers, but I think pound for pound, he's one of the dudes that I would go, in the red zone with, that is as strong as anybody else and doesn't get enough attention. And so you're on the Chargers. You haven't lived up to it. He's a young quarterback. He's going to throw it to you. So why aren't you number 15? Why are you 11? Why are you on the sleeper? Why are we making him this high? I guess is my question. I understand the intangibles, but like, at what point do you call someone out on their career as of not living up to the hype? Does that make sense?
Yeah, he's 34 now. First year in New Orleans, I think, was a lot better than last year. Obviously, Drew Brees was a check down machine last year, but yeah, I think his best season probably came with Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay. As you can see, tight end 18 last year, tight end 24 projection this year. Replacing Hunter Henry, I don't think that, especially in Herbert's second season, I think he will grow as a passer and not look for the tight end as much and look for Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler out of the backfield more.
And so that leads to me, he's the fourth or fifth option. And I would even argue with like Gronk being out of retirement, like Gronk should be ahead of him then. In my opinion, you have more weapons around you. If someone puts you in a package, Brady should be able to find you.
Well, I do like Jared Cook better than Gronk. That's why I had Jared Cook on my sleepers, just like Gronk. But I do think Cook has upside. It's just with age and not ever really being in the starting tight end conversation most of his career in fantasy. That's why he's a sleeper for me and not.
I would have started him at 15 personally. That would have been my 15th slot.
Yeah, he was definitely an option for me at 15.
But okay. Chris knows more than me, so hey.
Okay, my number 11 here, Mike Gesicki with the Miami Dolphins, 15 games last year. Surprised me when I saw his stats. Finished tight end 7. Tight end 11 projection, right where I have him. ESPN and I think alike.
I didn't realize he ended up tight end 7 last year.
Right. Neither did I. Similar statistics, down about 100 yards and 1 touchdown. But I don't have any issues with where his statistics lie projected wise. Like I said, I have him at the same spot as they do. Tua loves Mike Gesicki. The reason why I dropped him down to 11, and I think why ESPN did too, is they got more playmakers at the receiver position in Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle. That's going to take some targets away. It doesn't take any targets away, obviously, that they see him right here. But that's also 2 added games. So I think the drop in targets for a full season offsets to only lose a total of 2 with the added 2 games. So I like Mike Gesicki, Penn State boy. So what to see. I didn't think he had been panning out very well, and I liked him as a sleeper last year. Ended up playing pretty good with Tua. So 11th for me, and Chris has him a lot higher though.
All depends on quarterback development.
which I love Tua. I love Tua this year. Chris doesn't. I am absolutely all in on the Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa in fantasy football this year. My number 10, Dallas Goedert. Only 11 games last year, still finished tight end 20. Those are ridiculous stats for 11 games. Those are stats that some of the other guys on this list scored last year in 15 or 16 games.
That's ridiculous. And so my only question for you before you go off, because I know you have your facts, do you really think there's going to be 92 targets?
I do. Because
wow,
after Devontae Smith,
yes,
I love Jalen Reagor this year. I think Devontae Smith will open things up for Jalen Reagor that weren't open last year. Jalen Hurts in year 2 will progress as a passer. And also they're going to run more RPO stuff, which I think will help the passing game as well. So I like Jalen Reagor. And then I think the third guy is going to be Dallas Goedert. Obviously, he was, I believe, their leading receiver last year. I could be wrong. I'm not exactly 100% sure on that statement. But I do think 92 targets is in order. It's an option. I think the reason why I have him at number 10 is because of one of our sleepers later that we'll talk about. Zach Ertz is still there in Philadelphia. Whether he's there during the season or not, who knows? If he's not, then I think 92 targets is more than possible. But like I was trying to say, there's nothing really behind Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor. They have a lot of undrafted, low draft picks. And Dallas Goedert was a high draft pick, second round choice a couple years ago. And he's been waiting in the wings to get his starting chance, and now he finally has it.
I'll say this. I'm not going to take away projections, and this is all a fantasy thing, but if he has to get targeted anywhere from 89 to 95, 96 times, the Eagles are not going to be very good this year. Does that make sense? This is a fantasy projection, but there's no way that you guys win that East.
Well, you'll see with some of the top tight ends what their target projections look like and what they did last year. So,
I mean, we're only talking about 10, but for you guys to be good, you have to get Devontae Smith healthy. You have to keep people healthy to go downfield. And you got to figure out if Jalen Hurts is going to be your franchise quarterback or not. Do you believe he is?
We'll see. I have to see what the offense looks like. Like I said,
I will say that he's won everywhere he's went, so I'm not taking that away from him.
Like I said, if they run the style of offense that I think they're going to run and should run with what Jalen Hurts' skill set is,
they'll be good.
They'll be fine. And he will be the starting quarterback, which will make their 2022 draft so much easier with how many picks they have next year.
I like it. Let's go on. Let's move on.
Chris has Dallas Goedert a little bit higher than me. Now, Chris is number 10. This is where he has Tyler Higbee. I don't know if you wanted to talk any more about him.
No, I'm not opposed to this at all. I really do think he slots behind Woods, Cup. It's all about let's make sure Matthew Stafford doesn't break his thumb throwing into a helmet in preseason. You know, someone doesn't roll on his ankle. I've when he came in the league, I was high on Higbee, and everybody was like, "Who's Higbee?" And I'm like, "Just watch. He got the prototypical body. He's got the speed. I think they'll use someone in blocking packages more, and so I think you even see him lined up outside of if I'm McVay, how do you use Travis Kelce? How do you use OJ Howard? How do you use some of these guys that are top notch? And I start to plug him into those scenarios to make him better, to make him happier.
Yeah. And before we move on, What about that game that just finished? I thought it was going to keep going. I kept getting the updates because I had a
Olympics.
thing on it. The White Sox Cubs game that just ended 8-6 in extras. Uh, the White Sox were up 4-1 in the bottom of the eighth. The Cubs hit a 3-run bomb to tie it up and go to extras. White Sox get 4 in the top of the 10th. Cubs get 2 in the bottom 10, and the game ends. But I was like, dang, I thought the White Sox had it, and then I was like, oh crap, 8-6 now. I was like, oh, here we go. Cubs coming back.
And they traded with each other a few times. I think it's funny.
I know the guys in the group chat will be happy. They were on the White Sox -1.5. So luckily for them, they covered the spread.
And I should mention this, that the hospital Cousins was tied to was actually his hometown. So I shouldn't I opened my mouth without knowing anything. Sorry.
All right, Chris, like I said, this is the prototype from what Tyler Higbee's role could be with the Rams if they want to go that route. As TJ Hawkinson at number 9. I have him a lot higher.
I love TJ coming into the draft. You're a Big Ten guy with Penn State, and we talked about him coming into the league. I thought he fit the mold. He was big. I thought he was already advanced blocking, and people didn't tap into what he was able to do catching and throwing. And what better way to start a new quarterback off than to say, people don't realize this, your tight end is kind of their the way that they're used nowadays, they're hybrid in so many ways, but it's still your safety valve. Your running back and your tight end, if you can't find a receiver, are your two people that are your lifesavers, right? Someone that's 400 pounds running after you, you better find a running back or a tight end out in the flat, in the middle, wherever it may be. And so number 9, I'm not opposed to it. I probably would have put TJ at 7, 6. And just because I think in order for the Lions to be respectable this year, the quarterback that I've been watching and don't like has to learn where TJ is and I think that's the number one in his role when he comes to the Detroit Lions. That's my number 1 guy right now.
Yeah, I have TJ a couple spots higher, so I will talk more about him then. My number 9, this is where I have Jonnu.
I actually really like this.
6 spots ahead of Chris, 3 spots ahead of ESPN. Look, Cam Newton, Super Bowl year of 2015. Who did he have?
Greg Olsen.
Greg Olsen. That is true. And he loved Greg Olsen. I think that is what I think the Patriots are, obviously they have Mac Jones for the future. But I think what their moves did this offseason were to try to win with Cam this year and not have to play Mac Jones. Because when you compare what they had in Carolina in 2015 to what the Patriots have now, they have Jonnu, who is going to be their pass-catching tight end. They have Hunter Henry, who is going to be their majority of the time their blocking tight end, but can also catch very well, as we saw in LA. They went out and got a speedster, a deep shot guy in Nelson Aguilar, who filled that role for the Raiders last year. Kendrick Bourne can also do that, but Kendrick Bourne is more the middle of the field guy. I'm trying to think who that was for Carolina. I don't remember who the receivers were other than Ted Ginn, because I remember Ted Ginn was their deep shot guy in 2015.
Yeah, you had Calvin Benjamin coming off the injury.
Yeah, Calvin Benjamin. They had Jericho Cotchery.
Yes,
that's who the guy was. That was their middle of the field guy. So I think Cam's going to love having Jonnu. Whether it is Cam the entire year or not, I don't think it will be. I don't think Cam will last, whether that be injuries or just straight bad play. That's why I'm not a big fan of the Patriots this year, but it works out in favor that the Patriots lose a lot of games because then they'll have to throw the ball, which favors Johnny Smith and the other receivers. So tight end 16 last year, tight end 12 this year in a expanded role with New England. And the other part, like I said, I think they're doing two kind of mixing together two kind of things. The 2015 Panthers roster construction, as well as the 2010s roster construction that they had with Brady, Gronk, and Aaron Hernandez, the two tight end system. You should be seeing the Patriots run a lot of 12 personnel. I always get confused on 21 and 12 personnel, but I believe it's 12 personnel is one running back, two tight ends.
So I actually love. I would have went 10. I would have went Johnny slotted at 10. I think the quarterback situation is no different than what you're facing in Minnesota, which Jonnu is the 15th for Chris's. I may be wrong. I think that was his 15th guy. It's no different being Irv, or I said Irv Smith in Minnesota. It's no different in who's going to throw to the tight end, even though Noah Fant, I think, is a great tight end, right? But is it going to be Bridgewater? Is it going to be Luck? Are you going to go back and forth? And so, yes, he's going to a new team, right? So this new team, though, I think can be an upgrade than what he was at with the Titans, and he had a great year with the Titans. And so I will go back to what I sent you this week, and you said no way. And I am by no means picking the Patriots as a Super Bowl contender. But I do think that it is like there was this whole disconnect, like Brady won the Super Bowl and he left the Patriots. Well, Cam Newton still sucked as much as Cam Newton did, and they still were 7-9, right? And people often forget that there were 9 people on the defensive side of the ball that just stayed home. 9 people, 9 starters. And so if you get all those people back and you added Hunter and you added Jonnu, and if Cam Newton can just maybe hit the tip of their finger, because he hasn't been able to hit a moving target since he was hit by Von Miller in the Super Bowl. And I will say that, like, the dude cannot throw a football to save his life anymore. And I know that he works hard and he's been great in the community and he can run the football. But let's say he's serviceable and they're 500 in week 6 and they say, you know what, we're giving it to Mac Jones. Mac Jones already knows what to do down the field, having Devontae Smith and Waddle. He's going to start checking down to Jonnu, and you're going to have to split it with Hunter. But I like Jonnu in the 10 to 12 range. I would have moved him up from 15. That's just my take. And I think the Patriots can be competitive. I don't think they're going to be world beaters, but I'm not so sure that the Dolphins just earned the second seed. I think it's a battle. Does that make sense? I think the Bills are clear-cut the team that they have, but it could be jockeying between the Patriots and the Dolphins depending on the quarterback. Because I'm not sold. I'm not sold on Tua. I'm just not sold on Tua. I think I'm sold on the defense, but Tua has to show me what he can do under center.
My number 8 is Logan Thomas with the Washington football team. Chris has him higher than me. But this man balled out last year, got a new contract this offseason, tied for tight end 3. With who was that? Noah Fant?
Yeah.
So, yeah. His thing was that he had quarterbacks that loved tight ends in Alex Smith, Taylor Heineke, and Dwayne Haskins. I do see the dip. I agree that he will see a dip. They added Curtis Samuel. They added Adam Humphries. I think Terry McLaurin gets even more targets this year than he did last year. Antonio Gibson ups his targets out of the backfield as well. But he's still going to be a force. 6 touchdowns is right along the lines where I see him scoring.
I'm somewhere in between, if that makes sense. Like, I understand what Riverboat Ron does with tight ends. I like it, but I'm 100% with you. Terry McLaurin, who's going to be throwing the ball to him? You sign a contract. You have to live up to that contract. I know they're professional athletes, but there comes stress with that. And so I think this is I think this is a right slot. I think this is a good slot.
And Fitzpatrick really hasn't been a tight end throwing quarterback in his career. Usually he throws to the receivers the majority of the time.
The question is, like, is there a lot of other tight ends that you would really slot at number 8 or in front of him? Let's find out. That's why we're doing this. Let's find out.
Yeah. Like I said, Chris has him higher. I understand why Chris has him higher, because Chris has always been a Logan Thomas guy. So I was never really a big Logan Thomas guy. I still am not. I love him because he's one of the few that have actually succeeded in the transition coming into the NFL as a quarterback and switching to tight end. So
you're saying that Tim Tebow is not going to be your number 1 tight end?
He could be. Tim Tebow is going to score 10 touchdowns this year.
Let's find out. Let's find out.
Yeah. I put Tim Tebow over Travis Kelce. You didn't know that?
Oh, well, I thought you were using my countdown because I had a 1 and 1A, but whatever.
Oh, okay. All right. Chris is number 8 here. This is where he has Dallas Goedert.
I actually think he's a good tight end. I'm only worried about that many targets. But if you have injuries, we saw it. And we watched how many Eagles games with each other last year. It was like they were getting guys off the street to block for Carson Wentz when he was healthy and Jalen. And the one constant was the tight end position. I don't know that he gets 85 targets. I just don't. I don't agree with that I don't agree with that right now.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm scared about. That doesn't take away his ability to catch the football, to find open space. But what is a full season of Jalen Hurts going to look like? What does your offensive line look like? What does Devontae Smith look like? What's the running game look like? And I just think going from 65 to 92 is a huge jump. Am I wrong? Is that not a huge jump?
Well, I think it makes sense because he missed 5 games last year. His numbers probably look like the projections last year if he plays all 16.
I'm an idiot because I didn't see the 11 games. I didn't pay attention to the. So, see, look, we're all not perfect human beings. I'm not perfect. Right? You miss that many games. Gosh, that does. Okay, so I would argue that you better have more than – if you went from 65 targets to 92, you better have more than 4 touchdowns. I would argue that.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll score more.
That would be my argument then.
Yeah, probably 6 to 8.
11 games. I'm over here thinking he played a full season, and why the heck are you going? Good job, Mark. Good job.
Well, that's
doctor tomorrow, everybody.
That's why originally I said those are ridiculous stats for 11 games.
You did say that.
Those are statistics that some of the other guys on this list put in a full season. So
you 100% said that. I was thinking about dinner or something else. I don't know.
All right, my Chris is number 7. This is where he has the rookie, the only rookie on both of our lists.
I like that he's coming into an organization that the quarterback got paid millions of dollars, and you either love Matt or you don't. and it's vice versa in Atlanta, but they're excited about him. The only thing that would scare me is what is your running game going to look like? Does that make sense? And he did miss some time at Florida, so there might be a guarantee that you miss at least 2 games in the NFL. But you lost Julio Jones, sorry. Why not? Why not throw 90 times to him? 109 is really high for a rookie. So please tell me I'm not need to go to the eye doctor for this. That's a lot of targets for a tight end rookie that I think people are going to bunch up in the red zone. And so maybe you go for 92 targets, he catches 80, 81, 82, 83, and he comes out with 4 touchdowns. It could be lower targets and higher touchdowns. That's the funny thing about the NFL, right? You could be such a force in the red zone, you might have 8 touchdowns and only 58 receptions.
Yeah, what's crazy about Kyle Pitts is I have him even higher than Chris does.
So. I like this though. Well, I like it. And they're excited about him. I think they're going to game plan just for him.
My number 7, this is where I have Hawk. I love TJ Hawkinson. Loved him coming out last year. I have him in our Dynasty League, and he performed miraculously for me last year.
Different quarterback.
Yes, that is why he's at 7. Because if it was still Stafford, he would be in the top 5.
Okay.
Jared Goff.
I would agree with that. Same system, top 5.
Yeah. And ESPN has him at 5. I do agree with their projections, though. He is by far the number 1 target on the offense. It is 100%. Not going to be Tyrell Williams or Rashad Perriman. Sorry, guys. It's not going to be.
100%. And I would even say that another year of if Swift can take, and I'm saying this because he's a Georgia guy, but if he can take even a foot forward, it opens up the door for him to get in the top 5.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Detroit has on offense 4 players right now. They have 4 cornerstone players, both tackles, Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, DeAndre Swift in the backfield, and TJ Hawkinson at tight end. Now, if they can get a solid wide receiver, sorry, Jared Goff, a solid quarterback. And that's the thing. It's going to help because they added Jamal Williams. Him and DeAndre Swift are both able to catch the ball well out of the backfield. So, yeah, I just don't think there's anyone that will get even close to as many targets as he will in Detroit. And he, even being at the tight end position, is going to go in the pathway of Calvin Johnson, who was then succeeded by Kenny Golladay. And now it's TJ Hawkinson. Big target, red zone guy. He'll score 10 touchdowns this year. If they can get there, if they can get to the red zone, that is. That's the issue with his touchdown numbers is will they be able to drive to the red zone?
Yeah.
All right. I have Robert Tonyan at 6, higher than Chris. Look, I understand 11 touchdowns is very difficult to replicate as a tight end.
God dang, that's hard.
And his catch percentage was otherworldly last year. 52 out of 59, 88.1% completion. Robert Tonyan. That doesn't happen. I mean, it does with the most elite of elite receivers, not tight ends, usually. So I understand why they have him up in targets, but the same receptions, essentially, up in yards, but less touchdowns. Rodgers has averaged about 28 to 32 touchdowns throughout his career, scored 40 last year, which was, I don't know if that was his career high If it wasn't, it was close. I think he might have scored 45 one year, but yeah, touchdowns always regress to the mean usually.
Rodgers will hit 38. Mark me if you want to take it to the betting, Las Vegas, wherever you bet, Kentucky Derby. The question of this becomes, he was such great hands and he was great in the end zone. So do you start to change your defense, and does that open up for some people's one wide receiver? I wouldn't put him number one, definitely top three, Adams, or does it open it up for a third or fourth receiver to take some of those touchdowns? I'm not saying he's definitely top 10 tight end, but does some of his touchdowns get sprinkled here and there?
Well, Chris and I both had Devontae Adams as our number one fantasy wide receiver.
I know.
So
I would not have put him number one.
But I do think Tonyan is the second option in the offense, even though they have some receivers who are mid-level guys. I think Randall Cobb coming back helps Tonyan, opening some stuff up in the middle. They still have MVS. They still have St. Brown.
You don't think it takes away from him?
No, I don't. I think Randall Cobb will open stuff up.
I think it opens it, but it makes another option that maybe he doesn't. Maybe 53 targets and 7 touchdowns. Because what would be the middle of 6 and 11?
I think we already know Rodgers loves Cobb. We know he loves Devontae. And I think we saw last year that he also loves Tonyan. So with those guys being the top 3, I think all 3 are – well, I don't think all 3 are fantasy relevant, as we saw. Randall Cobb was on our sleeper.
Randall, I don't know that Cobb is the same. Does that make it like he's older, he's left? I think he saw some writing on the wall, and maybe – not maybe, Rodgers trusts him, but it doesn't mean that he's going to come and be a world beater either, Cobb.
But see, that's the thing. I don't think that's one good thing about Randall Cobb coming back. He poses no threat in my mind to Tonyan's touchdowns.
That makes sense. I give you that. That makes sense.
So I do agree, though. He's not going to score double-digit touchdowns again. It's just touchdowns always regress to the mean more than they don't. So,
all righty.
Number 6. This is where Chris has Mike Gesicki.
As you can see, he was 2020 tied 7th. The projections tied 11th. The only thing that I'm going to say, I'm not going to ever knock someone's potential to be this high. It still goes back to who's throwing you the ball. And we know I'm a firm believer in the Dolphins' defense. Does that make sense? Maybe some people, and I think you are as yourself, you're higher on Tua than I am. And I think Tua has all the intangibles. He's been in the big moments. He's been coached by the best. He's had a brother that has challenged him his whole entire life, but I have to see it. Does that make sense? And I think that he had times last season to step up, and he didn't bail the defense out. But if you are going to bail your defense out, it's going to be through some trustworthy targets, and obviously Mike is one of them. I'm just not sold on Tua. It's different when you have the best offensive line. It's different when you're throwing Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. I still don't like where he holds the ball and the hitch for his throw. It is not it. I'm not going to say it because people are going to make fun of me and he might be a Hall of Famer. But where he keeps the ball in the pocket and his hitch and his throwing motion reminds me of someone that is not in the league that is vying for a tight end position. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's funny that Chris has Gesicki higher and I'm astronomically high on Tua this year. But I already stated my case for Gesicki being all the way at number 11 for me. There's too many added targets. So Chris is number 5. This is where he has Logan Thomas. Like I said, Chris has always been a Logan Thomas guy. So,
and deservedly so. I mean, the projection is 7th. He was 3rd last year. And I think whoever is in under center has to use the tight end to be successful in Washington.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Gesicki that I had, though. Upgraded receivers, which will take targets away. I couldn't put him higher than where I had him at number 8. So my number 5, this is where I have Kyle Pitts. So last year, 8 games at Florida, still had statistics that put him as tight end 3 in the NFL. I agree with his projections. Tight end 6 for ESPN, that's fine. He's going to have to get 109 targets. He's taking all of Julio's targets. Look, that's what he's doing.
You and I got us to club level. Remember that at the Florida-Georgia game? I knocked on the door and said, yeah, let us in here. We got $20, all of us, blah, blah. I've done it every year that I went to Georgia-Florida game. And we got to see 50-yard line right there. And the catch that he made in the back of the end zone, and then he gets injured, and they kind of – Kyle Pitts still throws – sorry. We're talking about Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Trask.
Yes, sorry, both Kyles. He still throws some balls, but it's not the same defense as Georgia. And you and I both talked about how he looks. He can line up because he's big enough to block at a tight end, but you can put him out on the wideout with his speed, and I think that's the differences, and that's the hybrid tight end that you have, and you see his numbers, and I think it translates. And, what do you say about the defense in the division? But what about the games where they don't have – there's going to be games where I think he just – defenses prepare for him, right? Like maybe the defending champions know what to do better with him because they have Gronk on their team or O.J. Howard. But you're going to have some mop-up duties where he goes out and has 8 catches for 163 yards and probably 2-3 touchdowns. If not, he's not living up to the billing. And you have a quarterback that's thrown to Julio and Ridley for years.
I think if the Falcons want to be competitive, obviously I don't think they will be because their defense is trash. But offensively for the Falcons, Kyle Pitts is going to have to score as many touchdowns as he did at Florida last year, being 12. Not necessarily 12, but I think double-digit touchdowns for Kyle Pitts will allow the Falcons offense to be in games. But like I said, he's literally taking all of Julio's targets. Calvin Ridley is by far the number 1 option at the receiver position now. So, like you said before, it's a massive task for a rookie. We'll have to see if he can make it through 17 games.
I firmly believe that if he stays healthy and they use him the way that they use him, did you put money on Najee Harris as rookie? I think that he can compete, and I actually back you with Najee because I think that you can use him in the running game and the passing game. I think Kyle Pitts has a chance to be offensive rookie of the year this year.
Well, don't tell your official pick yet, Mark. We got that show coming up in a couple of weeks. So
I said a chance. I didn't say I'm picking him.
All right. Number 4 through 1, Chris and I were agreed on all 4. So Number 4, this is where we have Mark Andrews for the Baltimore Ravens. 14 games last year, finished tight end 6, tight end 4, right in line with us. Projected for ESPN this year, right about at 200 points, up 30 with the added 3 games.
If the Ravens want to take a step up, I love this. Fits Lamar Jackson's game. Does that make the offensive scheme? I agree with this 100%. And if they want to even take steps to the Super Bowl, maybe he's number 3 or 2.
Yeah, this again, like you said, relies on Lamar Jackson actually progressing in the passing game, which we have not seen him do in his 3 NFL seasons now. I don't think it has mattered. Like I said, with Noah Fant, tight end really doesn't matter the quarterback as much as it does for wide receivers. Because usually tight ends are big, 6'4" to 6'7", 6'8". So they have a bigger catch radius than most wide receivers do. So I don't think it matters as much who the quarterback is throwing them the ball. And it really hasn't mattered for Mark Andrews either. Him and Lamar, my bad mind going back to draft years. I can't recall if Lamar and Mark Andrews came in the same year or not.
I think it was his second year.
Or if Mark Andrews was a rookie while Lamar was already there. But regardless, ever since Mark Andrews has been there, Lamar has loved him and thrown him the ball. And he's a red zone target, as you can see, 7 scores last year, 8 projected this year with the added 3 games to his slate. I don't see an issue with any of the projections.
I could actually see it being more touchdowns. And people would say, oh, that's kind of crazy. But I actually think if they're going to be a better red zone team, and depending how many times do you see someone bootleg it and you're looking for either the running back wide out, the tight end wide out, or back of the end zone, and you have to respect Lamar, right? In his running game, I think he could get 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Coordinator, I want to hit that 10 touchdown mark.
Yeah, and he actually, I was trying to find his career statistics because he's had double digits touchdowns before. If I can see. Yeah, 2019, he scored 10. That was on 98 targets. So right there, 109 projected this year would fall right in line with that. And what I was going to say increase is his targets, actually. I know it's 109 already projected, but I don't know. The thing is the receivers have not worked out. Marquise Brown has been a bust.
Yep.
They got Sammy Watkins from Kansas City, who is a career wide receiver 2 or 3.
Be healthy.
And then, they drafted Bateman in the first round, but who knows what he's going to bring. I didn't think he was the greatest at Minnesota. So I don't know. And again, it hinges on Lamar throwing the ball. So, but I think Mark Andrews, easy tight end 4, and he leads that pack of guys that are trying to get back into, because we used to have the big 3. It used to be Kelsey, Kittle, and Ertz.
100%.
For 3 or 4 years, that's how it was.
Agreed.
Now Ertz has gone away, and there are a couple of guys that have been trying to get into that 3rd spot in fantasy.
He's knocking on it.
Yeah, and Mark Andrews definitely in position to be one of the guys now. Number 3 for us, Darren Waller with the Las Vegas Raiders. just a monster season last year. Derek Carr loves Darren Waller, absolutely adores him. And he's projected as tight end 2 this year, just like he scored last year. A lot less stats, but
we are not going to talk long about this because I 100% agree. I guess maybe I need to know the number 2s and 1s that you have, but Derek Carr loved him, and he was, like you said, a monster. That was a word that came to my mind, or a beast. The dude is huge. Can you imagine, like, if you saw him at an airport, let alone like a dark alley, like he would just hover over you. He'd probably pick you up with one hand. Like, the dude is huge. And if I'm a quarterback, I'd love to throw the football to him, and Derek Carr loves to. And John Gruden loves to put him in situations where he can be a focal point of the offense, and I don't think that changes.
Yeah, and just like the number 1 and number 2, and even like I sort of said, number 4 with Mark Andrews as well. Darren Waller's the number 1 target, really, on the Raiders offense.
Yeah, you're 100%. Yeah.
Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards.
You break it down, yeah.
Hunter Renfro.
Yeah.
They added John Brown this offseason. But yeah, I mean, Darren Waller is their biggest threat that they have. And
that's the only thing that I think he's 100% a top 10, going to be in the top 10, right? But maybe he falls back to the 5th or 6th position because I think people are going to say, well, Henry Ruggs has to beat us, or you have to get more creative. And he's such a specimen. He's like a young hybrid of all these tight ends that went before him. But do you game plan specifically to say, hey, John Gruden, Derek Carr, you got to beat me? And does that make him the 4th or 5th best tight end, even though his skills are 1, 2, or 3?
Yeah. And it's also a fantastic story for anyone that doesn't know Darren Waller's history with substance abuse after he was drafted to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, tight end 2, Mr. Kittle, the return of National Tight End Day. George Kittle is probably the most fun personality in the NFL. Oh my goodness, does this guy love to have fun? And he only played 8 games last year, had some injuries, but the man can play, and he's a fantasy darling, just like number 1 is.
I disagree with you guys.
Projected as tight end 3 this season, he still finished in the top 20 after only playing a half a season. Just like I said with Dallas Goedert, Kittle's numbers were in 3 games less. And he scored. He had more yards than Dallas Goedert did in 11 games.
I'm going to tell you guys wholeheartedly, I disagree with this. And only because I would flip-flop, because I know who number 1 is now, and there's 2 reasons I flip-flop this. 1, because I really do believe that Andy Reid wants to use Travis Kelce a little less during the regular season. And second, if the 49ers are going to compete for that 1 or 2 spot, I think he has to be. I know that it's hard to say, well, he's the 2nd projected or the tight end 3 this year. For them to succeed in this league, he's got to be the best tight end. Does that make sense? And that's not taking anything away from Travis Kelce. And I think Travis Kelce probably, I guess, because you have the best – it's not fair for me to say we're going to flip-flop because he's got the best quarterback in the NFL. No offense to Tom Brady. But Patrick Mahomes – during the regular season is ridiculous, and they mesh so well. But I think that he missed games. I do think they need to save Travis Kelce, who's 32 this year. And so that gives George Kittle a chance to be the number 1 tight end. And to get back to that championship Super Bowl contender, you've got to beat out the Rams and Seahawks. And who's going to be Garoppolo or if somebody gets injured, who's going to be his favorite target outside of Kittle?
Yeah.
We know that Patrick Mahomes has Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I mean, I think they like Debo taking the next step there. Brandon Ayuk also, but
And they do. You're right.
yeah, I
Brandon
mean,
Daniels
he's
is
the
good.
number one target. He's in a Kyle Shanahan zone run play action based scheme. But the thing that I love about Kittle too is, he doesn't run just prototypical tight end routes. He can stretch the field as well. And also the yak, as we saw against the New Orleans Saints, just demolishing that defense on one play. We saw that's a big part of what Kittle's game brings too. Hopefully he can stay on the field for all 17 games.
That's his hiccup.
So
what kind of podcast would it be if I didn't say you both agreed on this? Someone's got to flip flop it, right? And who cares if I'm wrong? Like, the two best tight ends in football are who? Kelsey and Kittle. So, okay, I'm going to go against you guys and just say I'll switch 1 and 2. We can't all be alike. That's not fun.
Mark, that's what got you in trouble in the pig standings last year. We'll have to see this year, though. I don't know.
I did have the best dog picks last year, though. I know how to pick an underdog, but I don't know how to pick regular games.
All righty.
Look forward to the pick standings again.
As you said,
the man, the myth, the legend. Let's talk about it.
The best tight end in the National Football League, Travis Kelce. He has been the dominant fantasy tight end one for the last probably, 4 or 5 years now. Just no tight end is supposed to score 300 points, people. That's not supposed to happen.
And he's hilarious. He's a hilarious individual if you've never listened to him.
Yes, him and Kittle should get a podcast called KNKTE.
Thank you. They would be the most fun people to drink a beer with. Am I wrong? It would be hilarious.
KNKTE Talk. That's what it's going to be called. Just saying. Sign me up, Travis, George. I will be your manager for that show.
Needs to pass this podcast off because they need to just come on one time because of that great name that you just made up.
Sometimes I'm great at being creative. That isn't
no one ever, but
majority of the times. But anyways, yeah, 15 games last year, still tight end one easily. And like I said, with Tunyon regressing his touchdowns to the mean of 6, yeah, that doesn't happen with guys like Travis Kelce. They score double-digit touchdowns every single year. He has 5 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, which has never been done by a tight end. No tight end has ever had 5. So, yeah,
look,
that even includes Tony Gonzalez. So
the game is ever evolving, and I wanted to use Tony Gonzalez's name. And the one thing that I love about Kelce is he knows that he's got to respect someone like Tony Gonzalez that donned the Chiefs uniform, and that's what I love about him. And I'll say that came out this week that Andy Reid wants to save him because they're trying to build this dynasty for years to come. And Travis Kelce himself said, if anything, I'm going to ask him to play me more from now on. And that's his personality that I love. But if I see any dip in production, not dip in production, it would be less targets so that he's not hit as much. But I actually think that they would save him. And I really do think he can go up in the red zone. So if you don't line up for as many snaps, but we want to put you in the red zone and you're so good and you can't stop them, you could go from 11 touchdowns to 12 or 13 because we saved your body, or we saved a package and no one has seen this package until the red zone. Well, what do? We didn't line up correctly, and then bam, Travis Kelce, another touchdown.
I would say that giving him less workload would be easy just to take him out of the special packages, such as their Wildcat quarterback that he sometimes runs. He has also thrown the ball a couple times. That is why he had the 0.76 last year instead of just a 10th. He threw the ball a couple times and completed them.
The dude has a brother that won a Super Bowl. What can you expect?
Yeah, I don't think that
Super Bowl speeches ever.
I was there for it. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I don't think there's any slowing Kelsey down yet. With Patrick Mahomes at his quarterback, Mahomes is going to keep relying on him. Him and Tyreek are just ridiculous. I don't have anything else to say about it. You can come up with probably 100 friggin' adjectives to say about the Kansas City offense, but as long as Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball, Travis Kelce will continue to be the number one tight end. And he's the only tight end that I really know in my fantasy football career that has gone in the first round.
Like multiple, yeah. Wouldn't it be crazy, though, if they only won one Super Bowl? Like, this team is that good, but the ball bounces different. People change teams. You have, like, they got to get at least one more ring. That's why the Steelers back in the 70s was crazy to win 4, and you have the Cowboys. That's why Tom Brady, even though he's lost in the Super Bowl, is the GOAT. Like, the Chiefs got to get another ring, man.
Well, that's why, look at the 2010 Steelers. They went the 1, but they never won one with. They never even appeared in one with Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown.
Oh, I know. Injuries. Football is just a different game. You can't take it over like LeBron. But not to linger on anymore tonight. I enjoy. I think the tight end position going forward might be the most, depending on if we keep developing offensively wise. This is I think the position moving forward that is the future of the NFL. I think it's a hybrid running back, wide receiver position. You call them a tight end. One day a tight end's going to go number 1. Watch.
Well, now we have our fantasy sleepers. There are 6, I believe. No, 8. Yes, 7. No, there's 7 fantasy sleepers. Then we got rookies. So starting off, the other New England tight end, Hunter Henry, played in 14 games for the Chargers last year. Tight end 12, tight end 14 projection. So he's actually the highest guy not on our lists. Chris also had him as a sleeper, just like I did.
Oh, you got to split with Jonnu Smith, right? So that's maybe if you didn't, he would be in the top 15, but you have to split those targets.
Exactly. The only way I see him being fantasy relevant is if, like I kind of noted, the Patriots are sort of trying to go back to their 2010s Gronk, Aaron Hernandez, dual tight end sets. We can throw out of it too. Both guys can catch the ball and have productive seasons. The reason why I kept Hunter Henry off my list was because of what I heard earlier in the offseason when both of them were signed. The feeling was Jonnu was going to be the pass catcher. Hunter Henry was going to be the predominant blocker. And it hurts me because I always loved Hunter Henry out in LA and San Diego. I loved Hunter Henry. Drafted him almost every year. But I can't do it this year, Hunter. Sorry. Other guy on this screen, Anthony Ferkser. He is one of my favorite sleeper tight ends this offseason. We saw what Jonnu did last year. Now there is Julio. I'm not a big Julio fan. Julio will probably get injured anyways. That leaves Anthony Ferkser. He will be the third option in the passing game. And I think that will give him enough opportunity. He's projected as tight end 22, which is still good to be a tight end 2 in a 12-man league. So definitely available to draft as your backup tight end and possibly even a flex play if Ryan Tannehill turns out to love him like he did Jonnu.
Flex play is good. I also think that the running game has to. We all know how good Derrick Henry is, but you know there could be a regress because you've used him so much. So we'll see. I'm not sold that. I think it's a good pickup if no one drafts him. If you have to use him as a flex, okay.
Yeah. Next two here, Adam Trautman with the New Orleans Saints. Finally, another guy just like Irv Smith and Dallas Goedert, finally getting his opportunity in New Orleans after a couple of seasons. Former third-round pick. Actually, fourth round. Someone said it was fourth round, but I was damn sure he was a third-round pick out of Dayton. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But regardless, only had, I mean, his catch percentage was ridiculous last year.
I mean, that is a pretty big jump. 57th to 20th this year.
Yeah. Well, like you said, they had Jared Cook there last year.
But the one person I would rely on is Sean Payton dials up a lot of, I mean, you're going to pass, they're going to pass the ball there, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, if Thomas gets hurt again, I don't see that being far-fetched at all.
Yeah, especially early on in the season, there are going to be a lot of targets available for Trautman because, like you said, Michael Thomas is projected to miss the first quarter of the season.
I actually like that. I actually like him as a top sleeper. I really do. Yeah.
And Deontay Harris has a pending legal situation for a DUI, which we mentioned back when that came out, that the usual league suspension for DUI is 2 games.
Right.
So that could be 2 games where it's essentially in the passing game, Traquan Smith and Adam Trautman. So
I like that. I actually like that. I mean, I think he's a good sleeper.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he has potential. He's not one of my top guys, not like Anthony Ferkser is, and not like this next guy is. Dan Arnold, the Darnold to Arnold connection will be electric.
That's the first thing that came to my mind. I love that Darnold to Arnold. But
it's going to be fantastic.
I mean, it's the same targets. It's kind of the same numbers, but less touchdowns. So are you wanting to stretch for someone that is projected to go from a better number to a worse number? Or do you think that he goes from 23rd to jumping maybe to 19th?
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Dan Arnold will have a career season this year. Last year in Arizona was his career best. That was his 31 for 438 and 4 touchdowns. That was his best statistical season of his career. But he had been in Arizona his whole career. They don't throw to the tight ends. Now, does Carolina necessarily? Maybe not. They have a lot of mouths to feed. Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield is going to catch 90 balls.
When healthy.
Yeah, and that's the issue. But I just thinking about it in my head right now, I liken my Dan Arnold projection this year to my Stephon Diggs projection from last year. Now, last year I had Stephon Diggs as wide receiver 8 on our rankings. He was projected as wide receiver 34, or no, not 34, because that's too much of a coincidence that Dan Arnold is tight end 34. But I think he was 37, 38 on ESPN last year. But Dan Arnold will score in the top 20 at the very least. He will be a tight end too. And I have been drafting him as a backup tight end in a lot of leagues just to hold him on my roster and see, because I do think he has a chance this year. He's massive. He's 6'6", I believe.
He's a big body, and I will piggyback off on what you just said. Because I was a Stephon Diggs fan in Minnesota, and I thought his numbers were going to go down in Buffalo. I told you that he was going to be 10th or 11th. We all know how he performed last year. You know, he was more in line with what you said. And the thing that came to my mind was, who are the receivers in Arizona last year? Well, they had a lot of mouths to feed, right? And I think you do in Carolina, but they're not even as established. They all have just had one good season or had a good connection at a previous team. And so why not come in here and establish yourself as a top 20 tight end? I'm not saying that you're going to be top 5. And when was the last time when did Sam Darnold have a good tight end in New York? Ever?
Well, he had one good season with Chris Herndon, and that was it. But Chris Herndon, I don't.
But you also didn't have a really good. It was one or the other. You didn't have really good wide receivers on the edges, but you had a decent tight end, or vice versa. And now maybe you have the whole package, and Matt Rule has a good defense, and let's see what happens.
Yeah,
I'm a firm believer. In your opinion, I think the Panthers are going to vie for that second position in the division.
Yeah, I absolutely love him. Like I said, I think Dan Arnold is going to break his career records. He'll have 500-plus receiving yards, 8 touchdowns. That is going to be a big factor in his final fantasy ranking. He will have 8 touchdowns this year and 50 receptions.
6 touchdowns.
8.
Let's go, baby.
50 for 500 and 8 touchdowns. That's 148 points.
I'll match your 50 for 552 and 6 touchdowns.
Yeah. 550 for 500 and 8 touchdowns gets you 148 points. So
moving on.
All right. Old guys.
Well,
guys.
Who are these grandpas? Who is that? Julie down there? Oh, sorry, it's Zach. Sorry. Just kidding.
Former tight end all-stars, man. Now, Jimmy Graham was not my sleeper. This is Chris's sleeper. And I texted him. I was like, this is Jimmy Graham, right? He's like, yeah, what other Graham is there? I was like, I don't know. I was just checking because Jimmy Graham will not be a fantasy relevant option this year. I'm sorry, Chris, he won't. They are giving the keys to Cole Kmet to be the number 1 tight end this year in Chicago. And Cole Kmet possibly could be a sleeper if Justin Fields plays. Even Andy Dalton, I don't know. I mean, Andy Dalton has shown he likes tight ends when he was in Cincinnati. But
I don't know what to say because it's hard going against somebody that you saw in New Orleans have such success that you're like, dude, he's a special specimen. But since that happened, they traded him away and they were better off for it. They got better protection for Drew Brees, right? And he went to the Seattle and didn't have a great stint there with a quarterback that everybody thought would even enhance his skills more. And then you've seen people come into the league since then, right? Like the position is no longer the Tony Gonzalez, Jimmy Graham. It's became the Travis Kelce, George Kittle, different position. And so I just don't think that he has – I agree. I don't think he has that value. And if Chicago has to use him, the way that he was years ago, they're probably not very good. Tyreek Cohen hasn't came back fully from injury, right? Like they haven't identified their next quarterback. Does that make sense? Like if you have to use Jimmy Graham as a fantasy killer, you're probably not in a good position in my mind.
And that's the thing. I was shocked when I saw he finished tight end 13 last year. I was like, damn.
But the red zone was where he ate
touchdowns. Yeah.
I guess he's still like I can't take that away from Chris putting him here as a sleeper. He still should catch touchdowns if you find yourself in the red zone. That's the question, right?
Yeah.
8 to 3 touchdowns is not particularly a good. Like you better go to just half of that. You better go to 4. Someone that maybe is on the downcline, can you get 5 touchdowns?
Yeah, this equates to 72.8. I forgot to update the projected points. So 72.8 fantasy points for Jimmy Graham. Almost halving his fantasy points from last year.
Well, yeah.
So
in 40 and 13 is 2 different. Let's say he gets 6 touchdowns, right?
That's up to 84.8.
But do you still see him having 21 receptions? I mean, you got Robinson back. You're giving the keys to. I
don't have any issues with his projections. I think that's perfectly fine. Yeah, for a backup tight end, that's a decent statistical line. So, but yeah, not fantasy relevant. Now Zach Ertz is an interesting case. Tight end 2 in Philadelphia right now. He, like Dallas Goedert, only played in 11 games last year. Pretty much got a little bit over half of what Goddard did in the same amount of games. What I did find interesting reading ESPN's projection blurb on him was his worst. Obviously, he had his worst statistical season of his career last year, but it was due in part to the quarterback play. He had a 49% completion to him, but he also had the second worst, I believe it was, on target throw rate. So the passes just were not close to him or right there for him to catch. So that attributed to his terrible year last year. And, he's going to have a role. Philadelphia likes to use 2 tight ends. Granted, obviously, we don't know how the Shane Steichen offense is going to run in Philadelphia because they didn't really have 2 tight ends like that to do a system similar in LA when he was the OC out there for the Chargers. But tight end 23 isn't terrible, but I said he was an interesting case because is he going to be on the Eagles? That's why he's so intriguing.
That's hilarious. That was going to be my question to you was, does he end as an Eagle? Because I think that he might start as an Eagle. But I actually like him as a sleeper and maybe even a little bit up as a sleeper because he had some injuries. He had an off year. He's got such a competitive wife. I think he's got a lot to prove. And does he get into the system that still utilizes him? I don't know off the top of my head what type of team would be a great fit for him, but I could see him being, if he's healthy and the work ethic that he's had and the way they've used him in the past, can he be the 17th or 18th best tight end?
The Buffalo Bills. Chris and I have been saying it all
I would
season.
love to see him. Now that you said that, oh my gosh, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, we've been saying that all off season. Ertz to the Bills. That actually
What about a
wasn't.
young quarterback that maybe is projected to be second in their division behind the Chiefs? Does that help a Chargers team?
I don't think so. Not that they brought in Cook. I think they're determined to use Cook as the.
Could you use them both? Is one better than the? I mean, that's just. I'm thinking about quarterbacks that need help. I mean, he's going to help Jalen, and just how are you going to use him? Could you? I mean, we talked about Tanyan, but could Ertz be somebody that maybe the Packers get in week 4 that helps them win another championship with Aaron Rodgers? You know, you gotta trade some pieces. They don't have a lot to trade, but maybe some draft picks, and we're going all in this year with Rodgers.
Yeah, I couldn't. I can't remember who the team was in the ESPN article that had 5 potential trades during the preseason. I can't remember who the team was.
Oh, I'd go Cardinals.
That might have been who it was, but I'm not
I
sure.
mean, I can't think of no one's in our fantasy for tight ends. You already know who your wideouts are, so you got J.J. Watt. Let's add a veteran tight end.
Issue with Arizona, like I said, with Dan Arnold, they don't throw the tight end. And
Right.
they signed AJ Green and drafted Rondale Moore.
That's 100% true. See, there's all these. And who's to say that he doesn't resurrect his career in Philadelphia?
God, Trey Mancini was so close to. He doubled. He didn't. Oh, it was so close though. Oh, Trey, I need a home run, bud. Okay, last guy here, last sleeper. Blake Jarwin only played 1 game, got injured first game of the year last year after 1 catch for 12 yards. So he was supposed to break out last year. They have the offense to supply him with enough targets. Dak is back. So I could see it. I can see. Could you imagine the NFC East having the best division of tight ends?
And think about in the past the way that, I mean, you have different coaches, but what has been a staple in many of the years where the Cowboys have been successful? The tight end position.
Mr. Witten.
When,
But when
go ahead.
when you go back to the successful years of Mike McCarthy in Green Bay as well, who did he always have? Jermichael Finley.
Yep.
So I think Blake Jarwin, like I said, has a chance. I think the projections are solid, a solid base anyways, for, like I said, what the offense that he is in is. But we'll have to wait and see how he comes back from the injury. They have a lot of question marks on the Dallas offense, though. Is the offensive line going to be okay? Is Dak fully back? He already has another injury with his shoulder right now. So is Zeke going to help the passing game and, actually get a running game together, which goes back to the offensive line? Amari Cooper's been dealing with an injury throughout camp.
I think it opens up possibilities for him.
Yeah.
And who I was thinking of back with the Dallas's big 3 and Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin is you had 2 guys that I think don't get talked about enough. Moose Johnston, their fullback, opened up lanes, and Jay Novacek. And I look at Jarwin as a bigger, more athletic Jay Novacek. I don't really compare him to a Witten. Witten's kind of in his own class, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, that is all the tight end sleepers. Now the rookies. So I picked 4, and usually, we put first round rookies and then anyone that I think has a chance to be fantasy relevant this year. Obviously, we only had one first round rookie at the tight end position in Kyle Pitts. But these 4 guys, I do think have opportunities to be fantasy relevant. Starting off, second round pick, Pat Freiermuth with the Steelers. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see him play last night. He is dealing with an injury just like the starter Eric Ebron is. But I loved Pat Freiermuth. He's another Penn State tight end, just like Mike Gesicki is. And, I don't think it's going to be this year. I think next year, I think Ebron will be gone. Obviously, we'll have a new quarterback next year, more than likely, anyways. But I do like him. Pittsburgh, as you said, hasn't really had a solid tight end since Heath Miller. And I think Freiermuth can do it. It's just how quickly will he get on the field? How quickly will he step up? And will he take away from Eric Ebron or not?
I agree. I have my favorite on this list. His last name might be long career in the NFL. We'll talk about it.
Well, that's who we're going to next. Hunter Long, third round pick out of Boston College for the Dolphins. Back up behind Mike Gesicki right now.
If you're high on Tua, I think he has a chance. I think they have a chance to have a really good 1-2 combination at the tight end position.
Yeah, I think he's in a very difficult situation. Mike Gesicki there, already a younger guy in front of him. I loved Hunter Long coming into the draft. Just not a good situation. And like I said, with Mike Gesicki being lower on my list than Chris had him, not because I don't love Tua this year, just other targets.
That goes back to me talking about that tight end situation. I think moving forward, if I'm building a team, why can't you build a team around 2 tight ends? People want to have great receiver 1, great receiver here in the slot. Like, moving forward, you might see teams having 2 really good tight ends. Because are you really going to just use a tight end as a tight end anymore? Or are you using them as a big wide receiver out on the sides?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next guy here, Brevin Jordan with the Houston Texans. Now, he's a guy that I like the most, actually, out of all 4 of these guys. Just because I think he has the best opportunity at getting the most fantasy points out of these 4. Brevin Jordan out of Miami was a great receiving threat for De'Aaron King last year. And he's on a team that the tight ends don't really wow you. Jordan Akins, I'm not sure. No, Darren Fells is on the Lions now. Other than Jordan Akins, I can't really even recall who the other tight ends are for Houston. So that tells you something. But also, I just think Brevin Jordan is by far the most talented at the position. We'll see if David Culley and the OC there like him enough. But if Deshaun Watson is playing quarterback for the Texans this year, he has shown throughout his career that he is favorable to tight ends, as we saw with Darren Fells having a couple of big seasons in Houston before leaving this offseason. So
I agree.
And the last guy, Here is, I don't know if you know who that is, Mark.
Say it.
It's not Tim Tebow.
No.
Because these are rookies.
Tim Tebow's not a rookie.
Plus, Tim Tebow is wearing his number 15 jersey. But no, this is Luke Farrell, 5th round pick out of Ohio State. Urban Meyer's former player there. And his is similar to why I liked Brevin Jordan and why the Jags brought in Tim Tebow. And the Jags were actually the team in that trade article that I was talking about with Zach Ertz, now that I'm thinking about it.
I can see that.
But, yeah, Luke Farrell is in a great position. I didn't know much about him coming into the draft. Being Ohio State, they really don't use tight ends that much.
That was the first thing that I was going to say. I know his name and I know what school he came from, but I don't even remember really seeing him catch a pass. Obviously, we would only watch Ohio State when they were playing Penn State, being in SEC country. I just don't know a lot from him coming out of school.
Yeah. I mean, I remember him scoring a couple touchdowns. He's a big guy, red zone threat. But again, the competition, there's not much quality talent at the tight end position in Jacksonville. Chris Manhertz is the projected starter, I believe, coming over from Carolina. But when he was in Carolina, he was predominantly the H-back. He didn't catch many balls in Carolina.
That kind of makes why Tim Tebow is in camp, right? Like there wasn't a ton on the roster.
And they also have James O'Shaughnessy, who really hasn't panned out. I believe he was also a former 5th round pick. Could have been 6th, maybe. I don't believe he was any higher than 5th out of Florida State a couple years back. So I do think he has a chance. I'm just not sure how much talent he really has. So, yeah, those are the 4 rookies that I think have shots at fantasy relevance this year. Brevin Jordan, like I said, being the number 1. Pat Freiermuth would be the number 1 if Ebron got hurt. So now next week, we don't know what the show schedule is next week yet. Hopefully I can do a show on Friday in Milwaukee when I get there. Not completely sure yet though. So and Monday's show, we're not sure if that's going to be moved to Tuesday or not.
All right.
So, but regardless, our next show will be our fantasy kicker and defensive / special teams show, ranking show. And then hopefully we'll have 2 shows next week because we really need to in order to keep time down, unlike we did tonight. But
anytime I'm on, it's a long-winded show.
Hopefully we'll have 2 shows next week because next Friday, Football Friday show will be a longer one. I think it will be. Because we'll be having the preseason game recaps of the 2 Thursday night preseason games. Eagles at Steelers, Washington football team at Patriots. And then we will also be previewing the preseason weekend. And also I thought about it and we're going to do some college previews. We're going to give our picks for conference winners. We're going to hopefully do 1 Power 5, 1 Group of 5, and then join the independents in the last show. So we're going to do ACC and American Athletic Conference next Football Friday, hopefully. We will let y'all know about our broadcast schedule officially. Chris will get it up on the Twitter, the Instagram, and we'll see how next week pans out. But thank y'all for watching. Mark, it was awesome having you back on. Looking forward to the season coming up.
I'm ready for some NBA.
Relive our rivalry in our picks. And hopefully
I'm ready for the preseason Super Bowl picks.
yeah, that'll be at the end of August slash 1st September show. But yeah, thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. FAApodcast.com is our website. All of our shows are on there. Check it out. And we will see y'all